Chapter 342. Nanyu's Little Yao Arts. Nanyu walked into the Yao Art House as usual. Her expression was calm. She met many classmates and good friends along the way. Everyone chatted, but no one had the carefree expressions they usually had. The mood was slightly tense. Today was the annual house exam. The results of the exam would greatly determine their future fate. The Purple Lotus Yao Art House wasn't a famous house, but it had some influence in this jia. This could not be separated from their strict exam. Ayu! A familiar shout came from behind her. Without needing to turn her head, Nanyu knew who it was. She stopped walking, turned around and said curiously, "Hong, aren't you exempt from the exam? Why are you here?" Hong was Nanyu's best friend. They knew each other from childhood and had a close relationship. Hong came from a very obscure little clan. However, this clan's Yao were all skilled in illusory Yao arts from birth. Hong naturally studied those Yao arts. Due to her outstanding talent, Hong had been accepted as a student by a teacher when she entered the Yao Art House. Hong did not need to go through the exam, so Nanyu felt shock at Hong's appearance. Hong was dressed colorfully and had a blooming smile on her face. "I came to see your exam. How can I miss such an important time?" Nanyu was very moved and said, "It's just an exam. There is no need to be nervous. And with a Yu's strength, it definitely wouldn't be a problem." Hong was filled with confidence. She suddenly came over with a secretive expression and said in a low voice, "They said that a Darren from the Creeping Sedge's core." "A Darren from the Creeping Sedge's core?" Nanyu stilled and then her expression changed. "The Creeping Sedge core of Binglan Darren?" Hong was very satisfied with Nanyu's expression and giggled. "Other than Binglan Darren's Creeping Sedge's core, where is there any other Creeping Sedge's core? How about it, are you moved?" Other than being taken as a student by a teacher, going into the military was also a pretty good path. In the military, one would be able to learn many practical Yao arts, and when enough service was accumulated, it was possible to learn more profound Yao arts. Right now, the fighting at the front was raging, and this was the best chance to accumulate service. Nanyu smiled and didn't speak. If she had not encountered Darren, she would definitely be moved. But right now, she did not have any extraneous thoughts. It was great honor to be able to follow Darren. She was not clear to Elder's identity, but there was a point that was undoubtable. Elder had a deep history with the Wisteria clan of the South Sky. In these past days, she was left full of respect towards Elder. She could clearly feel her own strength leaping forward. The nondescript little Yao arts actually contained such deep meaning. Nanyu's indifference was unexpected to Hong. She made a sound of surprise and re-examined her good friend. Nanyu did not look any different than usual. She still wore plain clothing, but there seemed to be something extra to her. But what was it? Hong could not say. "Ayu, did something happen recently?" Hong asked probingly. "Nothing." Nanyu shook her head. Seeing Hong's concern, her heart warmed. She hesitated but did not speak of Elder to Hong. Without Darren's permission, she did not dare to carelessly speak of it. However, Creeping Sedge Core. In the past, entering Creeping Sedge Core was one of her goals. The mood of the Yao Art House was tense and slightly restless. The news that a Darren from the Creeping Sedge Core came to see the exams made every student participating in the exams excited. Creeping Sedge Core was very strong, and Binglan Darren was immeasurable in her power. Binglan Darren was also very beautiful, and the dream of countless male students. For female Yao, being able to enter the Creeping Sedge Core was a good route. Afterwards, Nanyu saw the Darren that came from the Creeping Sedge Core. This Darren's figure was upright, and she was handsome and attractive. Her golden eyes were especially enchanting. This Darren most likely came from the Gold Clan. Standing on the stage, a sharp presence filled the room. Nanyu found that this presence was stronger than the great majority of teachers in this Yao Art House. The Yao Art House teachers may have deeper skill on the Yao arts, but compared to the combat Yao that came back from the front lines, they were lacking in their killing aura. Many students became excited. It was rare to be able to enter a military troop like the Creeping Sedge Corps, that was known all over the Yao world. Without any encouragement, every Yao was filled with competitiveness. The exam began with this anticipation and restlessness. The exam this time was much fiercer than in the past, But Nanyu was not excited at all. Purple Lotus Yao Art House was not a famed house, and there were only those few familiar faces. There were no new people that made her eyes light up. Also, these novel Yao arts that she would have been excited about before could not cause any ripples in her heart. She felt very strange. It was the first time she felt so strange. In her eyes, those grand and dazzling Yao arts seemed to be insubstantial. Her mind would uncontrollably think of little Yao art combinations that could replace these dazzling Yao arts. This feeling made her uncomfortable. Before, she would be excited when she saw this Yao arts and she would constantly rehearse them in her mind. She silently warned herself to not be proud. She could not underestimate everyone just because she learned something. She suddenly thought about Elder talking of little Yao arts to her that day. She remembered every word that Elder had said. Suddenly, Hong poked her from the side. It's your turn. Oh, she responded. She refocused and looked at the exam area. Focusing her mind, she flew to the field. Her opponent was Shizheng. This was a familiar opponent. Shizheng's experiences were very similar to hers. He also worked very hard, but similarly no teacher had accepted him. However, he was older than Nanyu, making his situation even worse. When Shizheng saw Nanyu, he was joyed. The Yao arts he was skilled in could subdue Nanyu to a certain extent. Begin. The teacher responsible for judging shouted. Shizheng's body lit up with light. This was the Yao art that he was most skilled in, rock driving flow. Shizheng's clan was Yao from rock, and was innately skilled in rock-type Yao arts. This rock driving flow was Shizheng's best Yao art. The lights on his body could perform greatly in defense, and it could stop the enemy from harming him when it was cast. A light flashed at the other side. The corner of Shizheng's eye jerked. So fast. One Nanyu's Yao art was already completed. However, he did not panic. The higher the level of the Yao art, the more time it took to cast. Since Nanyu finished the Yao art so quickly, it definitely was a low-level Yao art, and couldn't stop rock driving flow. Shizheng was full of confidence. He knew very few moves, but due to this, the power of his rock-driving flow was far greater than normal low-level Yao arts and was at the borders of intermediate Yao arts. Just as he was thinking, Nanyu's Yao art had already hit the light on his body. The presence of his body loosened. This was little Yao art, mist manifestation. The concentrated rock energy suddenly lightened, and he almost lost control of it. Shizheng was shocked. Little Yao arts could be used like this. Several sounds of surprise occurred on the spectator stage. The eyes of the Darren from the creeping sedge core flashed with light. Shizheng was shocked but not panicked. Little Yao arts were just little Yao arts. Their power was very limited. If she thought she could use this little Yao art to make him lose control of the rock energy, that was a delusion. He hurriedly adjusted his consciousness to strengthen his control. He heard Pia Pia Pia. 3 Yao arts in a row which was cast with blurring speed. 2 of them hit his body, and 1 hit the ground under his feet. Little Yao art, compression. Little Yao art, gold transformation. Shizheng's consciousness gathered the rock energy to prevent it from dissipating. He hadn't expected a pressure to push over. When the 2 powers collided together, the rock energy immediately collapsed and turned to granite. In the blink of an eye, a thin layer of rock armor appeared on Shizheng's body. Yet when the rock armor took form, it blinked with a metallic gleam as though it was a thin metal armor that wrapped securely around Shizheng. Shizheng felt unable to breathe. His entire body was enclosed and separated from the outside. Gritting his teeth, he tried to absorb rock energy from below his feet when a great force suddenly came from under him. His figure instantly unbalanced and flew to one side. The others only saw a rush of water shoot up from under Shizheng's feet and throw him to the side. It was another little Yao art they were very familiar with, Spring Summon. Shizheng was hit with another light as he flew through the air. His figure was strangely pinned in midair. Little Yao art, Spider Restraint. Nanyu's 10 fingers lit up with light like 10 little lanterns. The 10 fingers was poised to act, Little Yao art. Wind Spear. Shizheng's head rang. He knew he lost. His body was unable to move, and was trapped and isolated by the metallic armor, meaning he could not absorb any rock energy. He would only be a sitting target. The power of wind spears was not high, but 10 wind spears were more than enough to penetrate him. I lost? His mind was blank. He didn't even know how he said the words. The spectators rumbled. The struggle they had originally imagined ended with such a strange way. Clap, clap, clap on the stage. The Darren from the Creeping Sedge Corps clapped her hands as she rose, and said in praise, "Good. Little girl. Are you willing to come to Creeping Sedge Corps?" Whoosh, countless eyes gathered at the same time on Nanyu's body filled with admiration and envy. Many thanks for Darren's favor. Nanyu respectfully bowed and raised her head. Her eyes were crystal clear. Nanyu is planning on staying longer in the house. Darren, please forgive me. Hong shouted from below the field. She looked with disbelief at Nanyu and thought she had heard it incorrectly. The Darren from the Creeping Sedge Corps was also surprised, but she was not angry. She said faintly, "Never mind then." Then she sat down. But those with eyes could see the dissatisfaction of this Darren. On the field, Nanyu seemed unconcerned. Under the strange looks of everyone else, she casually flew off the field. The exam did not stop due to this little detour. When it ended, there were 3 students that were picked to enter Creeping Sedge Corps. This Darren did not stay. After picking the 3 people, she took them and flew away from Purple Lotus Yao Art House. And Nanyu that shook all of the house was facing Hong, who had a terrible expression, and felt a headache. Chapter 343. Integration. Zhuemo was very tired, but Gong Suncha looked as though he had just ate a full meal. At the side, Lil Pagoda was also very content. It may have been due to Lil Pagoda's urging that while Zhuemo was fishing, the 3 little ones had come over and divided the threads of soul-based source among themselves. Lil Black was the first to become full. Then it was Lil Fire. But Lil Pagoda's round body seemed to hide a bottomless pit. When his last bit of spiritual power was used up, Zhuemo still didn't get even one bite. Lil Pagoda contently patted its body had become slightly rounder, snuggled on Zhuemo's body and ran off to play. Zhuemo didn't even have the energy to swear. Dropping to the ground, he quickly started to meditate. The spiritual power in his body had been completely squeezed out. The 10 stars in his sea of consciousness started to slowly spin. As the starlight swirled, the void above the sea of consciousness seemed to become brighter. Pu Yao raised his head, and his expression changed as he looked at the turning stars. If Zhuemo could look into himself at this time, he would find to his shock the starlight given off by the 10 stars in his sea of consciousness was integrating into his flesh and blood. Threads of golden light suddenly flooded out from his flesh and blood. These golden lights were as thin as hairs, and were moving freely in the flesh. These golden lights might be small, but when they appeared, they had a domineering and fiery presence. Pu Yao did not understand much about physiques, but he had deep cultivation, and naturally could recognize what these tyrannical golden lights were. The golden lights were the Great Day Essence energies that were born from Zhuemo's cultivation of the Great Day physique. The Great Day Essence energies nurtured his body and made it even stronger. At this time, these Great Day Essence energies were like a school of fish that smelt blood and leapt at the dots of starlight merging into the flesh and blood. Pu Yao was shocked. How could Great Day Essence energies swallow star spiritual sand? Shocked, his expression became grave. What was happening in front of him was beyond the realms of his knowledge. He was skilled in all kinds of Yao arts. To his knowledge, spiritual cultivation and the physique were clearly divided and never interacted. Who could have thought the two would actually integrate? It appeared as though the Great Day Essence energies were swallowing the star spiritual sand, but Pu Yao clearly saw that the star spiritual sand did not put up any resistance. Otherwise Zhuemo's body would have become a terrifying battlefield. The Great Day Essence energies were tyrannical, but the star spiritual sand was profound. If the two conflicted, it definitely would be a fierce battle. This was what Pu Yao was worried about the most. In his predictions, the best result was the two sides were fine. Out of caution, he made up several plans to resolve this issue. But he had not expected that the Great Day Essence energies and the star spiritual sand wouldn't conflict at all, but attracted each other. He looked dazedly at such a fantastical scene. Could the spirit and the physique be cultivated together? But it had never succeeded in history. He actually knew of many great geniuses who had died on this path. The connection between Yao and Mo had never been broken. The two sides generally maintained a friendly relationship since they had the same enemy. Under this kind of cultural exchange, the idea of cultivating the spirit and the body at the same time naturally was produced. This idea had appeared many years ago, but there had never been one that actually cultivated the spirit and the body. The conclusion everyone made was that the combination of the two were fine in lower stages. But as one cultivated to higher stages, the drastic gap between the two sides would be expressed. The reason that Pu Yao had not restricted Zhuo Mo from cultivating the Great Day Mo physique was because of how powerful the Great Day Mo physique was at this stage, as it was life-saving. The other reason was that his level was presently too low to cause significant problems. But the scene in front of him defied Pu Yao's expectations and knowledge. These Great Day Essence energies were not great in number, but each was peerlessly powerful. The dots of star spiritual sand could only be produced by Yao that had awakened their second spirit. How could they integrate? The entire process continued for 6 hours. Dots of starlight came continuously from between Zhuo Mo's brows. The Great Day Essence energies swam everywhere and furiously swallowed the starlight. The starlight released between the brows gradually thinned. When the last bit of starlight was consumed, the Great Day Essence energies retreated back into the flesh and blood. Zhuo Mo opened his eyes at this time. His body felt unspeakably comfortable and content. His spiritual power had completely recovered, and he felt it was slightly full, as though it had leveled up again. His body was also filled with strength. Had Great Day Mo physique also advanced? Zhuo Mo felt it was strange. When he had been at Wukong Mountain, the feeling when he was cultivating embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation was not so beautiful. Now he felt very pleasurable each time, and it was really addicting. The difference between past and present was too great. He was worried that his cultivation had gone wrong somewhere. Pu. The slightly worried Zhuo Mo hurriedly found Pu Yao in the sea of consciousness. There isn't any incorrect places in my cultivation, right? A strange look flashed across Pu Yao's face. He did not answer directly, and asked interestedly, "What? Is somewhere feeling not right?" "No, that's not it." Zhuo Mo shook his head. "I feel that cultivation is becoming increasingly pleasurable. If cultivation is always this pleasurable, wouldn't everyone be intoxicated with cultivating every day?" The dullness and hardship of cultivation was very securely rooted in Zhuo Mo's knowledge. Pu Yao's expression was slightly displeasured. He felt Zhuo Mo's words were too ungrateful. Despite his displeasure, he was very interested in this matter. Taking Zhuo Mo's start, he followed along and said, "Then let me inspect you." As Zhuo Mo's strength increased over time, Pu Yao could not manipulate Zhuo Mo's body like he used to without getting permission. After the inspection, the strange expression on Pu Yao's face grew. Zhuo Mo instantly panicked. "What is it?" "Your Great Day Mo physique is almost at first maturation." "First maturation? Maturation? This quickly?" Zhuo Mo still and was then overjoyed. The maturation of a Mo physique was the representation that a Mo physique was advancing. After each maturation was completed, the maturation level of the Mo physique would go up a whole level. The more mature a Mo physique was, the more power it contained. No wonder he felt a bit strange. So his Great Day Mo physique was maturing. Zhuo Mo was very happy. He hadn't thought the first maturation of the Great Day Mo physique would come so quickly. He was also slightly surprised. He had only spent a short time with the Great Day Mo physique, and he was already facing the first maturation. As expected of the Great Day Mo physique that ranked second of all Brigadier Mo physiques. It wasn't just powerful, it was easy to cultivate. If Pu Yao knew what Zhuo Mo was thinking at this moment, he would die from spitting blood. He didn't look any different on the surface, but there were tsunamis in his heart. It was true that Zhuo Mo's Great Day Mo physique was facing its first maturation, but Pu Yao hadn't said the second part, which was the maturation of the Great Day Mo physique, had already begun. The maturation of the Great Day Mo physique this time was completely different than any of the Mo physique's maturations he knew about. Mo physique maturation was an extremely important and dangerous time for any Mo, because the Mo physique would reorganize itself during this time. If it was successful, their strength would grow, but if it failed, then it was the end. So Mo were extremely sensitive to the maturation of their Mo physique. When it was the time for a Mo maturation, they would find a safe place to safely finish the maturation. Mo did not know that his Great Day Mo physique had entered the time of maturation. The Great Day essence energies were silently changing his body, yet he did not know. The maturation process that should have been strong and dangerous had become much slower in tempo. So slow that Mo could not detect it. As the tempo slowed, risk decreased to the point there almost was no danger at all. It was very clear to Pu Yao that Mo would have no problems in finishing the first maturation, but it would just occur over a longer time frame. Pu Yao knew what this meant. The percentage of Mo that died during their maturations was the highest of those that cultivated the Mo physique. His expression changed slightly. Mo did not notice Pu Yao's abnormality. Since it was a good thing, he was too lazy to think further. Just as he left the sea of consciousness, Lil Pagoda came over and glued itself onto him. Lil Fire chirped as it floated around his body. Lil Black was in deep slumber on Ague's head, and Silly Bird was lazily lying beside Ague. A black figure flew out of the fiendish mist like a sharp arrow in front of Mo. It was 10th grade. 10th grade exuded a killing energy all over. His black crescent had grown slightly. Mo couldn't resist praising him. 10th grade is really working hard. 10th grade clearly was very motivated by Mo's praise. He raised his little head. Just as he was going to start a speech, he suddenly saw a light flash through the narrow crack of Silly Bird's eyelids who had been sleeping. He instantly shook, and the words that reached his mouth were swallowed back down. Just at this time, a strange sound came from the sky. The enormous egg-shaped fiendish mist ball suddenly cracked. A vast and viciously sharp presence exploded and spread like a gale wind. Such strong sword essence. Mo was shocked. Ma Fan was in that ball of fiendish mist. He hurriedly raised his head and looked at the sky. The noise disturbed the entire camp. Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp all stopped. The vast yet vicious sword essence made them feel fear. Ma Fan looked to be in very sorry state. His clothing was in tatters, and was covered in wounds that seeped blood. What made others feel strange was that his face was unusually peaceful and calm without any hint of pain. He slowly opened his eyes. Even though he was very far away, Mo still clearly captured the joy that spilled from Ma Fan's eyes. Had he succeeded? Mo didn't get to think closely when he saw Ma Fan's body began free-falling. He paled. The light void wings suddenly appeared on his back, and he disappeared from his spot. Almost at the same time, he appeared below where Ma Fan was falling. He caught the unconscious Ma Fan and flashed back to the camp. This change happened in a lightning flash. Before everyone could react, Mo had retreated to the campsite. He carefully placed Ma Fan on the ground. Xiashan worriedly came over. "Darren, is Ma Fan all right?" Mo carefully inspected and said, "Nothing, he only fainted from exhaustion." Everyone finally was released from their worry. In the depth of the fiendish mist, Weisheng suddenly stopped moving and his eyes lit up. Sword Essence. Chapter 344. Yizheng Mu. She observed the troop of Xiuzha in the distance, and could not disguise the shock in her eyes. It wasn't just her. Even Yan Feng, who usually looked down on everyone, had uncertain and shocked expressions. The formation of this Xiuzha troop was not organized. They appeared interlocked together, which gave Mushi the impression of teeth. The murderous intent was like an undercurrent. The continued fights between the two forces had left a deep impression of this troop. These Xiuzha were not powerful, and were of equal strength to her subordinates, but she had not won any advantage from this troop in their successive battles. Her eyes landed on the white-clothed youth at the very center. She suddenly had a feeling that this person may be her archrival. In their successive encounters, this young Xiuzha was cautious in command, slow and unhurried with the mannerism of a great battle general. She admired him. This person definitely was a core disciple of a large sect and had been well taught. It was possible to see hints of this from the Xiuzha around him. In order to protect him, they did not care for their lives. Mushi's eyes glittered. She suddenly floated out of the ranks and loudly said, "This one is Mushi. We will bid farewell today and meet on another battlefield. Sire, take care." The enemy ranks separated, and the white-clothed youth came forward. He said with a slightly smile, "No wonder. As expected of the Palace Lakewood clan. Lin Qian is honored." Mushi was shocked and did not disguise the shock on her face. "Brother Lin actually knows of the Palace Lakewood clan. You have vast knowledge. This little female is full of admiration." Wood clan was one of the 5 largest clans of the Yao world, and was the clan with the most branches. Even in the Yao world, not every person would recognize her origins. It was a testament to how powerful Lin Qian's background was to know her origins, especially since he was a Xiuzha. Lin Qian saw Mushi was straightforward and honest, and was not putting on a performance. He couldn't help but show hints of admiration in his eyes. "Miss, take care." Mushi smiled brightly and gracefully bowed. "Have a good trip, Brother Lin." Seeing the people disappear, Yan Feng said with slightly anger, "We are just letting them escape like this?" Mushi glanced at him. "Can we stop them?" Yan Feng stopped. He argued, "If we can slow them down when the other daren rush over and surround, then we won't have completed our task." Mushi interrupted him. She said faintly, "Don't forget what we came to do." Yan Feng was speechless. "This person will become a great enemy of daren." The middle-aged person beside Mushi said worriedly with a grave face. Mushi combed her hair, and said with a smile, "There are so many daren in the military, when would it ever be my turn to worry about this?" "Daren is too modest," the middle-aged person said smilingly. He deeply believed that Mushi had a bright future. Off to the side, Yan Feng dismissively twisted his mouth, but did not say any words that would provoke public fury. Lin Qian's procession quickly traveled away. After fighting multiple times with this Yao military troop, they had sustained fatalities and injuries on both dies. Lin Qian's expression was as clear as water, calm and steady. No hint of hurry was shown. The Xiuzha that accompanied him were well-trained and disciplined. No one spoke extraneously. Xiankong realm. The sound of bells echoed among the mountain range. A nondescript little temple was settled amongst the peaks. The yellow temple walls were covered in creeping vines, and were topped with gray-green terracotta shingles. There were many stone statues of lifelike Buddhas placed inside the temples. A small rainstorm had just passed, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of green grass. The rain remaining on the shingles flowed following the eaves like pearls off a broken string. As they hit the puddles on the stones, ding ding dong dong, the sound was very pleasing to hear. 2 Diana Xiao were sitting in the main hall of the little temple. "Xixiang, I'm afraid I will have difficulty getting time to come visit Xixiang during this trip." The young Diana Xiao was reluctant to leave. He was wearing blue monk robes. His features were handsome, untouched by mortal matters. A faint layer of light glistened over the pair of eyes. He looked to be about 20 years old, a kind of stillness within his handsomeness. Kneeling on the meditation mat, one could still feel his high spirits. The older Diana Xiao smiled warmly and said, "It's good for you to go, you will return in the end." The faint yellow monk robe that he wore had been washed for innumerable times. The color was already faded and patchwork mending could be seen to dot the robe. There were no signs of Ling power anywhere on his body. He was not any different than a normal person. "And I've already ordered the people below to deliver each month's allowance on schedule," the young Diana Xiao said in a light voice. "I'll return very soon." Xixiang waved his hand and smiled lightly. He said, "You know that I do not need these material items." "That is not all right." The spine of the young Diana Xiao straightened, and he said seriously, "Xixiang needs to promise me to take care of yourself. Only then can I feel safe leaving. There are still some more Ling grasses needed for the 9 Songdan. I can go and thoroughly search when I leave this time. When the 9 Songdan is made, Xixiang's cultivation will recover. Humph, let's see who dares to harass Xixiang then." When he got to the end, a threat of violence flashed through his eyes. "Shitty, you have to avoid corruption," the yellow-robed Diana Xiao said lightly. "Xixiang is right to lecture me." The young Diana Xiao lowered his head and hurried to admit his wrongs. "Even if you are out, do not slack in training your samadhi." "Yes." Yizheng looked back at the little temple at the back of the mountain, leapt up and disappeared into the sky. He hadn't flown for a long time, before he encountered some people. When he saw the people clearly, Zheng's brows couldn't help but slightly furrow. The others quickly noticed Zheng as well, and slowed down their flight speed. I heard that Shitty is going on a long trip. Congratulations, congratulations. The person coming smiled as he bowed with folded hands. Zheng calmly returned the greeting. It is due to the protection and love from all the Xixiang. The two sides chatted a bit more, and then left after detecting that the other had no intentions of talking more. Zheng's mood hadn't been good to start with, and his mood now was even worse. This group of people were the disciples of Cui Shirshu's branch. The sect was prosperous right now. The number of disciples had increased, and the number of conflicts and inner struggles had grown. Zheng's master had left on a mission and never returned. Xixiang had raised him alone. Xixiang was very talented, and ranked within the top 10 of this generation. All the elders of the sect thought he had a good future. Unexpectedly, Xixiang was heavily wounded during a mission. Even though his life had been saved, but his cultivation became non-existent. Starting from that point on, their branch declined even further. Xixiang came to Little Stone Buddha Temple to recuperate. Zheng had been 13 then, and had worked even harder after that. Fortunately, while Xixiang's cultivation had disappeared, he could still guide Zheng's cultivation. In the last Diana exam, he had claimed the 15th rank and re-entered the eyes of the sect elders to take on this mission. The rule of the sect was that each disciple had a monthly allowance, but this allowance was just enough for daily cultivation needs. The other disciples received gifts from their masters, but Zheng could only rely on other avenues such as teaching lower disciples on cultivation. That was his primary source of income. The sect was still generous to its disciples, and the payment of every mission was very generous. However, there were many geniuses in the sect, and the competition for missions was the fiercest. In the past, he did not have the power to compete. Until now. After some preparations, he decided to leave the mountain. He had already memorized the contents of the mission. During his flight, he started to think. The mission this time was not complex. One of the smaller subordinate sects found a very deep and strange hole. Bloody light roiled in the deep hole. None of the people that went in had come out. What he needed to do was to investigate and see what the situation inside was like. Then he would have to report back to the sect. After flying for more than 10 days, he finally arrived at the sect of the incident, One Light Sect. Ma Fan still had not regained consciousness when Zuo was pulled back into vast water-clear skies by Pu Yao. Pu, what connection does that Wisteria clan of the South Sky have with you? Zuo asked. He could see that Pu Yao cared for Nanyu. With this guy's frugal personality, having him proactively passing on Yao arts was akin to the sun rising from the west. Zuo also saw that Pu Yao didn't just intend to pass South Sky Arrow art to Nanyu. The descendants of old friends, Pu Yao said faintly. Pu Yao's answer provided the speculations Zuo had. He then asked curiously, what Yao art is South Sky Arrow art? A Yao art using arrows? A very strong Yao art. Pu Yao's answer seemed to avoid the point, but Zuo pondered it. A Yao art that Pu Yao called strong? Then it really was powerful. Just as Zuo's gossiping soul was stirred by Pu Yao's scarce words, and he was preparing to delve into this mystery, Nanyu came. Nanyu respectfully bowed to Zuo Darren. She had shone in the spotlight in the last house exam, and shocked all members of the house. Her status in the house had rocketed, and several teachers had come over requesting to take her as a student. However, she had refused all of them respectfully. She had not learned any profound Yao arts, but Darren's teachings had opened a completely new world to her. She believed that even if there really was no South Sky Arrow art, she would still find a path. It was the understanding she had gained during this past while that had caused her to become even more respectful towards Zuo Darren's strength was even more profound. In her eyes, there was a large chasm between the teachers of the house compared to Darren. Oh, you're here, Zuo pretentiously responded and then asked. Do you have any questions? If you have them, then ask. Nanyu suppressed the excitement inside, and raised up all the problems she had encountered and thought about in the recent days. Because they were all about little Yao arts, Zuo did not slack off and tried to answer them by himself rather than throw the questions to Pu Yao. Zuo had been with Pu Yao for a long time, and through listening and watching, The Yao art theory that he had come into contact with was much more profound than Nanyu. Due to this, the perspective from which he approached at the questions was a few fractions deeper than Nanyu. Nanyu's eyes lit up upon hearing the explanations, and continuously nodded her head. For Zuoemo, this was also a significant test. There were 2 questions that Nanyu raised which he had not thought about, and greatly affected him. After all the questions were resolved, Nanyu smiled happily. Zuomo's head was covered with sweat as he released a breath. If he hadn't been able to answer a question, then it really was embarrassing. And to be embarrassed in front of a Yao. Just as this nonsensical thought came into Zuomo's head, he suddenly heard someone shout, "Nanyu! Nanyu!" Zuoemo raised his head, and saw a group of people. No, a group of Yao waved their hands at Nanyu as they excitedly ran over. One embarrassing here is? Or lost person. So this is also lost person. In front of a Yao, which has another meaning since Zuoemo is a human, and not a Yao. Chapter 345. The prison battlefield. Nanyu hadn't expected to meet her schoolmates here, and silently thought this was a terrible situation. She discreetly looked to Darren. Inside, she secretly prayed that this incident would not infuriate Darren. This was the second time she had met Darren, and she did not know what Darren's temper was like. However, she had heard that many Darren did not like their movements to be known. "Student Nanyu, this is?" A deep and calm voice suddenly sounded out by her ears. She raised her head and felt that the situation was now even worse. This was Teacher Chi. Chi had been one of the teachers that had sought her out after the house exam, and wanted to take her as a student. Chi was born from the Fire Clan, and was very skilled in fire Yao arts. Among the teachers of the house, his power was enough to rank him in the top 5. Seeing so many Yao art once, Zuoemo felt his vision was broadened. This group of Yao were of various shapes, most of which were humanoid. There were 2 individuals that were very eye-catching. One of them had the body like a crisp green tree. Their numerous roots were like unusually nimble feet. They seemed to have a very lively personality. The tree branches were like soft whips that waved in the air. The other one's body was made from hundreds of flowers that gathered and dispersed in the air as they changed shape. Looking like this, how was it possible to distinguish between the sexes? This slightly profound question troubled Zuoemo. Chi's fire-red hair and lion-like features were not all that attention-grabbing in this group of weirdos. However, Zuoemo noticed him at first glance because he was the strongest of this group of Yao, and wasn't just marginally stronger. Hearing what Chi called Nanyu, Zuoemo instantly understood Chi's identity. "Sir, is Nanyu's teacher?" Sorry. I am Nanyu's cousin." Zuoemo raised his folded hands and said with a smile, "Cousin?" The group's gazes swept between Nanyu and Zuoemo, and their expressions instantly became suspicious. Darren's skill at lying really sucked. Nanyu felt very ashamed. From any angle, Darren showed no hint of being of the same clan as her. However, since Darren had said it, she could only force herself to say, "My distant cousin." Distant. The Yao all had understanding expressions. Such a terrible lie could only fool naive students, but how could it fool an experienced old Yao like Chi? However, since the other was not willing to state his origins, Chi did not have to pry. Everyone had secrets. "Nice to meet you." Chi politely bowed to Zuoemo. Zuoemo's consciousness was not as high as his, but it was above these students. Considering the other's age, he clearly had great talent. Great talent. Chi's thought moved, and he pretended to unconcernedly ask, "Which house is Sir in?" "I'm not in a Yao art house." Zuoemo shook his head honestly. "Not in a Yao art house." The Yao couldn't believe these words. "Why not?" The tree Yao waved its branches. This guy looked like an outgoing one, and it quickly rushed to be the first to ask, "I'm being taught by a teacher." Zuoemo's response instantly caused murmurs of admiration. Yao art houses were pretty good places for normal Yao, but students of a teacher could receive more guidance. Chi nodded his head inside. Zuoemo had not lied this time. He suddenly thought of the string of little Yao arts that Nanyu had showed during the exam. Had it been this cousin of hers that had taught her? The more he thought, the more Chi found it likely. He had taught Nanyu's class before, and understood this student well. There was nothing to be said of Nanyu's dedication and work ethic, but her talent could only be considered good. The dazzling performance of her last exam really was not her style. She finally realized why Nanyu had refused his invitation. It must be that the teacher of her cousin had also chosen to take Nanyu on as a student. "Can I ask for the name of your teacher?" she asked respectfully. That glimpse of the tip of the iceberg had been enough. Those little Yao arts had shocked Chi for a long time. "Oh, he's called Pooh." Zuomo's thought moved as he said, "Pooh." Chi careful searched his memory for this name, but did not find anything. It didn't seem to be a very famous Yao. Nanyu wanted to roll her eyes when she heard it. Darren's skill at lying wasn't just terrible. Nanyu thought the Pooh that Zuomo spoke off was just a random answer. Which Yao would be so casual with their teacher's name? As expected, the flower Yao snorted coldly. "If you don't want to say, don't say. There's no need to lie." The other Yao had expressions of agreement. Zuomo was confused, but he did not argue. He took the chance to go into the sea of consciousness and mock Pooh Yao. "Pooh, aren't you a sky Yao? How come no Yao knows you? You really ended up terribly." Pooh Yao's expression was visibly unwell. Having gotten his face back from Pooh Yao, Zuomo did not care for the cold snort of the flower Yao. Nanyu secretly glanced at Zuomo and thought inside. Darren's lying skill was somewhat terrible, but his face was thick enough. She did not think that Zuomo was lying. He had met many powerful and great Yao before, and knew many Yao had weird personalities and did not care for these things. However, he did not plan on wasting too much time on chatter. He said with a smile, "I came today to show them the prison battlefield. It is getting late, so we will bid farewell." Zuomo hurriedly bowed with his hands. Chi took the bunch of little Yao and quickly disappeared. After they went far away, Zuomo turned to ask Nanyu, "What is the prison battlefield?" Nanyu's expression instantly became slightly strange. Did Darren not know the prison battlefield? She didn't quite believe it. Thinking to that, she couldn't help but hurriedly remind him, "Darren, if you fail, it may wound the consciousness." "No problem." Before Darren's words landed, Nanyu felt the scenery in front change and become bright red. Not good, a fire cloud. Her expression changed drastically. In the prison battlefield, the Yao arts that she was most afraid of were those like the fire cloud. A dragon made out of fire seemed to smell them, and with a burning presence, leapt over. "Interesting." Darren's voice came over from the side. She finally remembered that Darren was beside her, and her heart instantly was greatly reassured. Zuomo really felt it was interesting. This fire dragon was made from 7 interlocking fire Yao arts, and was very clever. The 7 fire Yao arts were all little Yao arts, and were not complex Yao arts. What it tested was the reaction abilities of those trying to go through the prison. There were many ways of dealing with the fire dragon. Zuomo chose the simplest one. Little Yao art, water blade. A transparent water blade entered the center of the fire dragon boom. The fire dragon instantly turned to 7 balls of fire and exploded. Nanyu's eyeballs almost dropped out. She had clearly seen the little Yao art that Darren had just casted. She was able to generally estimate the power of the fire dragon from its presence. She did not doubt that Darren could overcome this fire dragon. But it was only a water blade. There wasn't any difference compared to the water blade she could cast. How was it possible? How was it possible? She looked dazedly as the balls of fire flew. Zuomo noticed Nanyu's expression, and recalled that he had this follower. He explained, "You have to look at the structure of the fire dragon. It was made from 7 interlocking fire Yao arts. If you can find the crux of this kind of Yao art, it really saves energy." There wasn't time to say more. A lightning arrow shot in front of Zuomo. Zuomo unhurriedly raised a finger, and a transparent water ball appeared in front of him. Little Yao art, water ball. The lightning entered the water ball. Countless arcs of electricity sparked and crackled on the surface of the water ball. There is no trick to this. Just respond quickly. Zuomo flicked the water ball covered in layers of electricity and said sedately, "When casting little Yao arts, the most basic point is speed." Before his words landed, countless water grasses in the surroundings suddenly and violently headed over. Zuomo flipped his hand, and a fire dragon that was just the same as the one before swam around the two of them. Everywhere it passed, the water grasses turned to dust. You have to learn and use. He appeared to have the mannerisms of a master, and was very composed. He enjoyed Nanyu's awestruck gaze, and his ego was very satisfied. What Zhuo did not know that his 3 continuous attacks seemed to rouse the silent prison battlefield out of its slumber. Chapter 346. The Prison-Breaking Battle. Nanyu's cousin really looks weird. The tree Yao waved its branches and spouted words like a spring spouting water. Doesn't look anything like Nanyu. From a glance, you can see he isn't a good Yao. How can Nanyu have a cousin like this? It really is strange. A cold snort came from the ball of flowers floating in the air. Shut up. Don't you find it strange? The tree Yao was slightly puzzled. How can you not find such a strange matter strange? Don't you find it strange? She felt a headache and shouted lowly, "Shut up." The tree Yao's words stopped. He obediently closed his mouth. He didn't dare to disregard teacher's words. After being silent for a moment, he really couldn't stop himself and murmured, "Teacher, don't you find it strange?" Everyone wanted to faint. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The tree Yao was the descendant of one of his friends. If he had the chance, he would always take the tree Yao along. But this guy was a chatterbox, and had really strong sense of curiosity. If he was attracted by something, he definitely would not let it be. The prison battlefield is up ahead. Chi's topic changed as he pointed at the front to try to deflect this guy's attention. As expected, the tree Yao's attention turned to the prison battlefield. So this is the prison battlefield. The other Yao didn't feel much. Several of the Yao in this group had already gone through the prison battlefield already. After entering vast water-clear skies, many people would give it a try. Even if they didn't have the strength, they wouldn't actually lose their lives in the prison battlefield. They would only be minorly wounded. If they were lucky, not even a hair would be damaged. Little Yao with guts liked to explore the prison battlefield. The Yao arts in the prison battlefield were a few fractions stronger than what was in other areas, and were suited for real combat. Also, if they wanted to enter the next prison, they must go through the prison battlefield. Let's go in. Chi saw the tree Yao was attracted to the prison battlefield, and released a breath. He hurriedly took the Yao in. Entering the prison battlefield, the scenery instantly changed. The tree Yao waved its branches and said emotionally, "It is such a strange place." But no one paid attention to him at this time. The other Yao had come to the prison battlefield before, and their nerves tensed. Teacher Chi was beside them, but he was responsible for teaching and guidance. Of course, in moments of danger he would act and protect them. However, they all still hoped to become Teacher Chi's student, and naturally did not slack off. All of them paid attention as they started to defend. Due to their high numbers, the pressure was much less, and they appeared to be at ease. "All of you spread out," she said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the Yao instantly spread out, and entered their own battle modes. The prison battlefield was a place to practice for real combat. In here, slacking off and shortcuts gave no benefits. Yao art successively came at them. All the Yao were 120% alert as they carefully responded. The fire dragon is a commonly used fire Yao art, and has pretty good powerful. It will be suitable for your use for a long time. The most important place of this kind of fire Yao art is its structure. Different structures will form different fire dragons. Like this fire dragon, it is made from 6 different little Yao arts. Oh, not a bad combination. She casually stopped a fire dragon, and reviewed it calmly. It needs you to be very familiar with little Yao arts. Nanyu is very outstanding on this point. You need to learn from her. When the other Yao heard this, they worked even harder. Clearly, Chi's praise of Nanyu motivated them. Do not copy these Yao arts. Zuomo's words shocked Nanyu. She couldn't help but say, "Why not? Aren't these Yao arts good?" 3 lights flew out of Zuomo's hand like 3 sharp sword energies. They entered a mountain-like lightning cloud. In the blink of an eye, the lightning cloud brimming with astonishing primary lightning was like a bubble that popped and disappeared. Nanyu's eyes almost fell out as she watched. Yao arts are full of innumerable transformations. There are 500 kinds of the most basic little Yao arts. This is unique among all cultivation methods. How many Yao arts are there now? No one. Oh, no Yao knows. But in vast water clear skies, there is no less than 10,000 kinds. If you just copy, you will forever be led by the nose by other people, and be exhausted by the pursuit. It is very simple. You will never finish learning. It was the first time that Nanyu heard such a daring way of thinking. She listened extremely carefully, and was afraid of missing a word. We will not copy them, we will deconstruct them. Zuomo's tone was faint and his attitude calm. With the flick of a finger, the Yao art heading towards him turned to dust as though it was an example of his perspective. The number of Yao art permutations is innumerable, but there are patterns to be found. What we need to do is to find their patterns. When we find their patterns, you will be able to create Yao arts that belong to you. And how do we grasp the patterns hidden behind the multitude of variations of Yao arts? Deconstruction. Nanyu blurted out. Right, how did it go? The person that understands you the best will forever be your enemy and not your friend. This phrase also works with Yao arts. Oh, we need to first be the enemy of the Yao arts. Nanyu understands. Nanyu felt like she was filled with awareness, her face flashing with light. There had never been a moment like this when she was so aware that she had clearly grabbed the pulse of destiny. The respect and awe in Nanyu's eyes made Zuomo feel as pleasurable as though he was in a hot spring. In the sea of consciousness, Puyao couldn't help but mock. You're pretty good at learning and selling at the same time. But he clearly underestimated the thickness of Zuomo's face. This guy snickered and said proudly, right, I feel the same. Puyao finally remembered little Mog was someone that could tolerate everything. Talking about face with him was never as good as talking about Jingshi. His happy mood assisted Zuomo's performance. His hands flew and streamed. No matter how powerful the Yao art was, none of them could get within 30 zhang of him. Just as Zuomo was having fun playing, the surroundings suddenly became silent. All the Yao art seemed to have disappeared. Silence, a deathly silence. All the river flows became silent. Zuomo's hairs on end. The sudden stop of the prison battlefield bewildered Qi's students who stared at each other. Qi made a light sound and his eyes brightened as they widened. Prison-breaking battle? You guys will get a great spectacle today. Prison-breaking battle. All the students exclaimed in shock. Prison-breaking. Most of the Yao who entered the 10-finger prison had heard of it. But most only heard of it. It was more like a legend. Prison-breaking battle. It referred to the prison battlefield that had detected an enemy that could pose a threat to it. It would then use the power of the entire prison battlefield to deal with the enemy. Prison-breaking battle. Creation after destruction. If a Yao won this ferocious prison-breaking battle, vast water clear skies would be reconstructed. Vast water clear skies had been created 300 years ago when a great Yao skilled in water Yao arts had completed the first prison's prison-breaking battle. Those that could break the prison had a certain connection to power, but that was not the definite trigger. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been so many powerful great Yao that went through vast water clear skies without activating the prison-breaking battle. Today, someone had activated the prison-breaking battle. Exclamations of shock sounded in the prison battlefield. They all understood what the unusual scene in front of them meant. The news that the prison-breaking battle was activated spread with astounding speed. Every Yao in vast water clear skies was disturbed. Like a tide, they flooded towards the prison battlefield. At the same time in the second prison that was neighboring to the first prison, many Yao raised their heads with shocked expressions. Immediately after, numerous figures flashed towards the door of the prison with astounding speed. Prison-breaking battle. The prison-breaking battle that had not appeared for 300 years. Darren. Nanyu's voice was shaky. She looked with fear at the deathly silent prison battlefield. You have to remember not to lose your calm at any time. The more you panic, the quicker you die on the battlefield. Darren's words caused shame to appear on Nanyu's face. Yes. If she was so timid, how could she follow Darren in the future? The terror inside decreased greatly. She raised her small face with a determined expression. What she didn't know was that Zuomo's entire scalp was prickling at this moment. He had rich battle experience. Even though the surroundings were silent and motionless, but the dangerous presence was rising. Pooh, what is happening? He carefully asked Pu Yao. Pu Yao narrowed his blood-red eye and lightly said, there's only this much stuff in the prison battlefield. What situation can happen? There really isn't anything? Zuo didn't quite believe it. Pu Yao's face was mocking. This is just the first prison. Hearing this, Zuo changed his thinking. That was right. Vast water clear skies was only the first prison of the 10-finger prison. If it really was so dangerous, there wouldn't be so many people. He hadn't done anything. If something unfortunate happened, it wouldn't be his turn. Comforting himself so, his heart was reassured. Before the stone in his heart landed, a strange power passed over, and Nanyu disappeared from beside him. All the other Yao in the entire prison battlefield, except for Zuo, were sent by this mysterious power out of the prison battlefield. Many of the Yao that were transported out had confused expressions, but when they saw the area surrounding the prison battlefield was filled with Yao, they all shook. But right now, no Yao paid attention to them. Everyone's gaze was staring into the prison battlefield. The rivers that followed constantly through the void of the prison battlefield, the lightning balls, the fire clouds, they had all disappeared. They could clearly see that figure that was at the very center of the prison battlefield. All the Yao widened their eyes. A Yao that could activate the prison-breaking battle definitely had a limitless future. Qi and his procession of Yao stared so much their eyes almost dropped out. The tree Yao excitedly waved the tree branches. Strange cousin. It's the strange cousin. Light flashed through Qi's eyes as waves were created inside his heart. The Yao that had activated prison-breaking battles before were all great Yao that had each left a deep mark on history. This person of average appearance was so powerful? When Nanyu was sent out, Zuo instantly understood the situation was targeting him. Since the other had such powers, they definitely wouldn't give him the chance to leave the prison battlefield. He had been tricked. Someone dared to trick Ji. Zuo's anger rose, and his stubbornness came out. The tendons in his neck bulged. His features enraged, he pushed up his sleeves, and murderously gritted his teeth as he uttered Dong Fu slang. Come on, baby. Chapter 347 One Battle. Zuo was filled with battle intent, his blood boiling. His back arched forward, his hands placed in the air in front of his chest with his 10 fingers spread out like a wild beast waiting to pounce. He gave others the feeling of danger. This was the starting position of Great Day Emo physique for physical battle, which he instinctively used. The surroundings were deathly silent, and caused Zuo's concentration to be highly focused. He was using all of his consciousness. Recently, his consciousness had greatly advanced. He had never used so much spiritual power at once as he was doing today. The usual fishing would always wring out his spiritual power, but the expenditure of little Yao arts was very low, so the process had been a drain of small increments. The movement this time was without keeping anything back, and he was going all in. The lively spiritual power wrapped around his body. Everything in the surroundings was quickly drawn out in his mind, and was as clear as it was a mirror image. The temperature of the surroundings rose, and the heated air grew heavy. The dark and deep void started to light up, and the surroundings turned crimson red. Zuo was motionless. His eyes narrowed. The presence of his entire body was quietly restrained inside. He was like a statue. How many has it been years since someone activated a prison-breaking battle? He doesn't look very good, really a monster. Leng Yu said emotionally to his good friend Changzheng. The two of them had charged from the second prison to vast water-clear skies. Before they even took a breath, they saw Zuo standing alone in the prison battlefield. Leng Yu wore a black silk robe, the sleeves of which were woven with gold silk into complex patterns. His figure was upright and handsome. He was from a famous family, and was usually very lofty. Pride and condescension had already deeply entered his bones. However, he was not stupid. Facing the monster that was in the prison battlefield right now, he had no assets to be proud of. Individuals that could activate the prison-breaking battle were all monsters that stood above all monsters. If they could continue being monsters after 1 or 2 centuries, they would even have the qualifications to enter the Council of Elders. Changzheng stared unblinkingly, and sked in wonder. As expected, a monster. I cannot even feel his presence. Just this method of concealment is nothing our generation can do. He then said suspiciously, but this position, why does it look like a MO skill? Leng Yu was from a famed family and naturally knew more. He examined for a long time before he nodded. It is a MO skill. Cultivating Yaoma together? That is ridiculous. Chang Zheng's face was full of disbelief. Leng Yu was also filled with doubt. He did not dare to make a conclusion and could only say, "We'll know later." The two Yao stared unblinkingly at the prison battlefield. They had gone through vast water clear skies battlefield in the past. With their power, they naturally had not had a hard time. They were very curious. Was the legendary prison-breaking battle really that powerful? At this time, the prison battlefield started its first wave of attack. The red light seemed to be pulled by an invisible power. They came from all directions, drawing out lines of dazzling red light as they gathered into a red mark with astounding speed. The red mark of light dramatically expanded. An enormous ball of fire instantly floated about 100 zhang from where Zhuamo was. The crimson-red flames continuously spat its fiery tongues. Rich fire elemental power spread following the waves of heat. Zhuamo felt he was situated in a large Dan cauldron, and it was hard to endure the baking. The eye-catching red light, the meteor-like red energy, the burning ball of fire, the flickering tongues of flames, they all caused the Yao looking in from the outside to have expressions of praise. Qianlu Darren of Peerless Water Yao Arts. I hadn't expected his fire Yao arts to be so domineering. Chang Zheng's expression was full of admiration. Leng Yu also had a face full of respect, and said, supposedly, Qianlu Darren was only 28 when he broke the prison and remade it into vast water-clear skies. It really is worthy of respect and terrifying that he could set down the name of a prison when he was 28. Ah, if there wasn't someone having a prison-breaking battle now, we would not have the good fortune to watch. Chang Zheng suddenly smiled and said, I wonder what Qianlu Darren would think if he knew his vast water-clear skies is being challenged? The enormous ball of fire burned and spread a scorching presence. The fire element power that was able to wound the mind splashed in waves against everything in the surroundings. Zhuamo's figure under the fireball was as minuscule as an ant. He seems to have confidence, Leng Yu suddenly said. Of course. Those who are average cannot activate the prison-breaking battle. Chang Zheng had a matter-of-fact expression, but then his tone changed. However, the fire Yao arts left by Qianlu Darren's impression in the 10-finger prison is not so easy to deal with. Who are you helping? That's like not saying anything at all. Leng Yu rolled his eyes. Haha, we're here to see the spectacle, the spectacle. Chang Zheng laughed awkwardly. The two spoke quickly, but their eyes were unmoving as they locked onto Zhuamo in the field. Zhuamo narrowed his eyes and only showed a narrow crack. No one could see that there seemed to be a cold and eerie fire burning soundlessly in the depths of his eyes. The open arms, the spread fingers, the slightly curved figure, they all give the Yao a feeling that he was planning to hug this fatal and tyrannical ball of fire. Zhuamo was not nervous at all. The burning and fatal presence given off by the enormous ball of fire in front of him did not cause any ripple in his heart. Of the 5 elements, the fire element was his most familiar element after water. From the firstly water sword scripture, to the golden crow fire after that, he was an expert at playing with fire. The fireball in front of him was somewhat similar to the fireball that Pu Yao had once demonstrated to him. In the beginning, Zhuamo had encountered difficulties when he was comprehending the Li water sword scripture. When Pu Yao taught him, he had also created an enormous ball of fire. This familiar scene made his mind go slightly astray, but it was only a sliver. His body naturally entered battle mode. He no longer was that inexperienced Wukong sword sect disciple. After so many battles, he sensitively caught the opportunity. He attacked first. In the void, he stepped forward and then disappeared from the view of the Yao. The strange step stirred exclamations of shock. What the Yao were even more shocked about was his action. To charge straight at the ball of fire. Wasn't that just going to find death? This fireball was formed from almost all the power of the entire prison battlefield. The fire element power contained within it reached a terrifying level. If he was touched by any of the streaks of flame, he most likely would not be able to retreat with his body intact. The fireball seemed to felt the threat. The tongues of flame rose, and crimson-red whips of fire shot at Zhuamo. In the void, the fire element power reached a horrifying level. Sweat rolled down Qi's forehead. The density of fire element power in the prison battlefield made him, someone skilled in fire Yao arts, feel his heart speed up. Zhuamo stepped out of the void, his steps not slowing. He stepped forward and seemed to step into the void again. Without knowing it, a faint layer of gold covered his legs. The bursting tongues of fire furiously leapt at Zhuamo, and he was almost struck a few times. There was only the difference of a few hairs. Such a risky scene made Nanyu's face pale, and she almost shouted a few times. Zhuamo's expression was indifferent, as though he did not detect the danger. His steps were like a stroll, at ease and calm. The crowd of Yao watching did not lack those who had knowledge. Their expressions changed. None of them had seen such a strange walk before. Leng Yu and Changzheng felt their bodies freeze as their eyes shock. As all the Yao were shocked by Zhuamo's steps, no one noticed layer of faint light on Zhuamo's hands. With each step, the light on Zhuamo's hand would become slightly brighter. When Zhuamo made his 12th step, the light on his two hands was so thick it was almost tangible and could flow like liquid. What was this? The Yao's eyes were unconsciously attracted to the light covering both of Zhuamo's hands. They were filled with curiosity. Everyone knew this was Zhuamo's killing move. No matter how profound his steps were, they could not defeat the fireball. He still needed to rely on an offensive Yao art. The multicolored light created multicolored afterimages during Zhuamo's high-speed movement. As Zhuamo flickered in and out, it became broken sections of a rainbow. Killing move. It definitely was a great killing move. Everyone widened their eyes and didn't dare to blink. Nanyu suddenly covered her mouth and muffled the shout that had reached her mouth. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Heavens, how? How was it possible? That was... Zhuamo's mind was almost icy cold. As he made another step, as he went closer to the fireball, continued to rise in temperature. His presence continuously grew with his steps. His figure slightly paused as it went against how people normally moved. 30 zhang away, the domineering and scorching heat hit his body as though it was incinerating him. He crouched down slightly and both of his hands dropped to his side. The slightly lowered eyelids were completely open now, revealing the calmness in the depths of his eyes. It was like cold butter thrown into the fire. The flame exploded. The boiling battle intent burned every one of Zhuamo's nerves. All the tongues of fire of the fireball flooded towards Zhuamo. The fire twisted into a burning sea. The continuously rising presence reached a peak. He suddenly raised his face. Kill. The rampaging and violent killing essence suddenly shot outwards with Zhuamo as the center. Zhuamo jumped up into the air like a flying sword leaving its sheath. Carrying a patch of multicolored light, he struck towards the sea of flame in front of him. Among the sea of flames that covered the sky, a multicolored smear carved out a straight and blinding line, causing sparks to fly like the rain. Among the sparks, the multicolored light struck the ball of fire. All of the domineering and explosive presence, all of the battle intent, it all seemed to enter the ball of fire along with this blow. The prison battlefield paused. Everything paused. Time seemed to have stopped. Pia. A sound like an eggshell being cracked. The domineering and terrifying crimson-red ball lightly exploded and turned to a handful of sparks. The sparks were like rain and mist as they fell. Zhuamo's figure floated in and out of view. The presence on his body disappeared. The multicolored light on his hands also disappeared. Silence, deathly silence. For 10 whole breaths, no one made any sound. Only 10 breaths later did the Yao seem to suddenly wake up. Exclamation rose and fell. Who saw what Yao art that was? Too powerful. Haven't seen it before. Definitely a secret Yao art. Such a weirdo. I wonder which hidden family he came from. Worth it. Didn't come for nothing. It is so worth it. None of the Yao in the surroundings could keep their calm. The crowd was very excited. Among the Yao, Nanyu tightly covered her mouth. There was only one thought repeating in her mind. That was, the discussion in the surroundings seemed to be far away to her ears. No one could have thought that among all of these many Yao, only she understood that move. That was, little Yao arts. Chapter 348. Scheming Little Yao Art, a 16 Little Yao Art combination. The rainbow-colored light lingered in Nan Yu's pupils. She had almost stopped breathing. 16 kinds of Little Yao Art versus the fire Yao Art of Qianlu Darren. The difference between the two was like comparing a child and a battle-hardened warrior. Standing aloofly among the rain of light, there was no joy on Zhuomo's face, nor smugness. Nan Yu suddenly felt that Darren had a great presence. Leng Yu and Chang Zheng's were shocked, but the shock quickly turned to extreme passion and excitement. No one knew what Qianlu Darren's fire Yao Art was called, but no one cared at this moment. Clear Skies Qianlu was a name that was legendary for the Yao. They had not personally seen how Qianlu Darren completed the prison-breaking battle 300 years ago, how he had reformed vast water-clear skies. They could only imagine from hearing the tales and histories. Yet today, another Yao had activated the prison-breaking battle. A new legend was being created front of them. Zhuomo's grand and dazzling lights and the fierce combat in the battle just now made every Yao present feel their blood boil. A new legend was going to begin. Even if this Yao of unknown origins was so young that it was almost outrageous, no one doubted his power at this time. Do you recognize his movement technique? Chang Zheng impatiently asked. Leng Yu's eyes and knowledge were just a bit higher than his. Leng Yu's face was serious. It's a bit like nether-stepping movement art, but his feet have a golden aura. This does not match the records of nether-stepping movement art. It is very strange. It must be another high-level Yao art. The organization of Yao arts was chaotic and complex because too many kinds of Yao arts existed throughout history. Additionally, after the Thousand-Year War, Yao arts gradually entered a phase of rapid development. All kinds of novel and wondrous Yao arts appeared, and this also became a huge problem for the ranking system of Yao arts. As the large Yao art houses developed, the house-taught Yao arts gradually replaced the clan-taught Yao arts. Due to this, the Yao art rankings finally settled. From the most basic little Yao arts, to low-level Yao arts, to intermediate-level Yao arts, to the astonishing high-level Yao arts, to the even stronger earth-level Yao arts, and then to the sky-level Yao arts. This complete Yao art system was constructed. This system had an extremely strict division. It wasn't just based just on the power of the Yao arts but included such things as the difficulty of casting, and the amount of spiritual power used. There was a special bureaucracy whose purpose was to judge the levels of Yao arts. Chang Zheng's expression was solemn. Can you guess which Yao art house it is from? Can't see it. The use of clan-taught Yao arts had declined. Even the young Yao that came from the large clans mostly chose to enter a Yao art house to learn. The famed clan Yao arts of the past had been gradually merged into the Yao arts of the various Yao art houses, and became the ultimate skill of those houses. Sky-level arts mostly existed in the legends. Almost all the experts, including all of the Sky Yao, had died in the great battle thousands of years ago. The earth-level and sky-level Yao arts they knew were lost in the rivers of history. What the largest Yao art houses competed with were the high-level Yao arts. These were the trademark arts of each Yao art house. There were similarities between the basic and intermediate Yao arts between some Yao art houses, but it was rare that high-level Yao arts were the same between houses. Each Yao art house was extremely careful when passing down their house's high-level Yao art. Only the most accomplished and core disciples had the qualifications to learn. This kind of level is probably also the peak if it's in the Great Ten. Chang Zheng threw his confusion to the back of his mind and praised. Leng Yu asked in response, Great Ten? These 300 years, how come not even one of the students of the Great Ten activated the prison-breaking battle? True, Chang Zheng nodded his head. This Yao art house is going to be famous. It may even enter the Great Ten. This guy may not be from a Yao art house. Leng Yu's words were shocking. Not from a Yao art house? Chang Zheng turned his face in shock. You mean that he's using clan-taught Yao arts? Maybe. Ling Yu's gaze focused. Look at his battle method. Does he look like one from a Yao art house? Chang Zheng pondered this, and an expression of agreement grew. Since you mentioned it, I also had this feeling. It doesn't seem like the stuff from Yao art houses. He responded very quickly and said with a smile, I wonder which Yao art house will benefit this time. Clan-taught Yao arts like this were what the large Yao art houses desired the most. In the Great War thousands of years ago, the Yaoma had lost, and greatly suffered. Countless kinds of knowledge had been lost. The lost knowledge had formed through countless years, and represented the highest level of Yao arts. They were the brightest pearl of the entire Yao art system. The Yao arts that were developed after the war had developed mostly from the remaining basic Yao arts and intermediate Yao arts. That was the origins of most high-level Yao arts. But higher ranks? The legendary Earth and Sky level? A few thousand of years was too short for them to be redeveloped. Other than the top Yao art houses, the great majority of Yao art houses only had high-level Yao arts. The Yao art houses that possessed Earth and Sky level Yao arts had not gained them through their own power, but were just luckier. The clan-taught Yao arts of the past were the best part of the ancient Yao arts. If they could regain these clan-taught Yao arts, it would be of great help in understanding higher-level Yao arts. Of course, there were differences between clan-taught Yao arts. What they needed the most were those outstanding clan-taught Yao arts. If this Yao really was using clan-taught Yao arts, he was a tasty morsel for any Yao art house. Nether-stepping movement art was a high-level Yao art and one of the trademark arts of the Dragon River Yao art house. The amazing scene just now, in Lung Yu's perspective, this movement art was not worse than the nether-stepping movement art of the legend. Even he couldn't help start scheming. Behind the back of each Yao art house was the shadow of some large clans. When the Thousand-Year War had just finished, due to the fact that the peak and high-level individuals of each clan had been lost in high levels, it led to the loss of large amounts of Yao arts. Many clans encountered difficulties in their cultivation paths, and lacking guidance, they had to openly discuss and study with other clans. This marked the rise of the Yao art houses. As the Council of Elders supported and administered it, the Yao art houses became even more popular. Now a Yao art house was like a rope that tied several, or even a dozen clans together to become a singular being with a common purpose. This was also why the clans were willing to share their clan Yao arts. In the Ice Day Yao art house that Lung Yu attended, the Western Mountain Cold clan occupied a seat on the Council of Elders of the Yao art house. If he could recruit this Yao into the Ice Day Yao art house, then he would have contributed greatly. He wouldn't just be able to receive the top art of the house, Cold Day Ice art, but maybe his clan would get another C on the art house's Council of Elders. Even though Lung Yu was usually proud and cold, his breathing sped up when he thought about it. He wrung out his mind thinking of what conditions he could use to persuade the other. He felt lucky about this prison-breaking battle occurred in the first prison. Otherwise, even thinking about recruitment was a delusion. At his side, Changzheng looked with shock at his good friend. But then he thought and understood. However, he did not think well of Lung Yu's plan. In his view, those that could activate the prison-breaking battles were the top geniuses of each era. The two of them could see this. Would the other Yao art houses not? In terms of competitive power, how could Ice Day Yao art house compare to those top Yao art houses? His gaze swept around, and found that there were more Yao around now than before. He was very calm. He wasn't from a large clan, just a normal student. Light continuously flashed. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were filled with Yao. This was really a spectacle. Changzheng thought inside. Nan Yu was still immersed in the grand battle, and did not notice Teacher Qi drift next to her. Seeing this, Qi could only cough. The startled Nan Yu noticed Teacher Qi, and hurriedly bowed. Teacher Qi. Oh Nan Yu. Qi's masculine face was filled by a smile, and he said intimately, the role of the chief student elder in the school is empty. Are you interested? You are very young, and it is rare for you to have the strength you do now. With great power, you have to be brave and take on responsibilities. Nan Yu stilled where she stood. Chief student elder meant being the elder of all the students. This was a role that every student dreamed about. The chief student elder could receive the guidance of all the elders in the entire Council of Elders of the Yao Art House. When they graduated, they could enter the Yao Art House and take on a core role. Even though they were students, their status would be much higher than normal teachers. This role was far too important, so in the last 7 years, the Purple Lotus Yao Art House that Nan Yu was in had kept its chief student elder position empty. Now Teacher Qi was telling her she could be chief student elder? She felt she was dreaming. Taking a few deep breaths, Nanyu tried to calm the excitement inside. This world changed so quickly. A few days ago, she was working to become a student of a teacher. Now the position of chief student elder was being offered to her. All of this was so fantastical and unrealistic. But Nanyu quickly calmed down. Her experiences of hardship caused her to understand worldly matters better than normal students. The calm Nanyu did not need to waste much effort to understand Teacher Chi's motivations. Looking at the calm Nanyu, she was slightly shocked. For the first time, he properly looked at this student that didn't have outstanding talent. To be able to maintain calmness in the face of such a great temptation, she wasn't average. Maybe he had missed a good seed. Regret flashed through Chi's mind, but that doubt of regret quickly disappeared. The role of chief student elder was far above anything he could promise. However, he was also very clear if they wanted to compete for the mysterious male Yao in the prison battlefield. The only advantage the Purple Lotus Yao art house had was Nanyu. Compared to an expert that could activate a prison-breaking battle, a position of chief student elder really was not anything. He believed those cunning and slippery elders of the house would see this clearly. If he could help bring this matter to a favorable conclusion, would his efforts be unrecognized? He looked with burning eyes at Nanyu. Chapter 349. Rage. Nanyu shook her head and said, I need to first ask cousin's opinion. She knew his intentions had been seen. His old face reddened slightly, but it quickly turned back. Of course. The tree Yao, the flower Yao, and the other students looked from a distance as Chi talked with enthusiasm on his face, and all of them were shocked without an exception. The sparks fell like rain. Zhuo widened his eyes as he warily observed the surroundings. The scenery in the surroundings had not changed, but the feeling of danger did not lessen, but had become even more oppressing. Had that just been a warm-up? Zhuo felt no fear. Just the opposite. An excited battle desire filled his body. He wanted the upcoming fight to be even fiercer. The exquisite 16 little Yao art combination had dismembered the other's fireball in an instant. What really excited him was that he had actually used one of the transformations of the Great Day Mo physique, Light Void Wings, in his crisis. What Light Void Wings strengthened was speed, to become as fast as lightning. It was the first transformation Zhuo learned. When he had used it just now, he had a great idea. He suppressed the formation of the pair of golden wings, and diverted the power to his legs. It actually produced the effect of stepping through the void. So light void wings could be used like this. Zhuo suddenly felt there was light, and was greatly inspired. Since the power of the light void wings could be pushed to his legs, what would happen if he pushed it to his arms? Or any other place? He was even considering, could the other transformations be used like this? He was yearning to try and filled with the intent to battle. He had really made a profit today. What he did not know was that Pu Yao's eyes almost dropped to the floor in his sea of consciousness. In his view, the new change of the light void wings was somewhat wondrous, but it was not enough for him, a great sky Yao, to be shocked. What he felt was inconceivable was the use of Mo skills in the 10-finger prison. This was not possible. He almost shouted. 10-finger prison was constructed from Yao arts, and only the power of Yao arts could be used in the 10-finger prison. No matter if it was Mo skills or Xiao spells, they definitely could not appear in the 10-finger prison. Even the first prison, vast water clear skies, was not an exception. But what happened in front of him completely broke this rule that had existed for countless years. What was this? Strangely, a thread of fright appeared in Pu Yao's heart. Zhuo did not know of the thread of fright floating in Pu Yao's heart, but even if he knew, he would only snort and mock. He cultivated a variety of things, and did not have a bias towards any kind of power, and was curious about them all. Even more so, he didn't have the time to chat with Pu Yao. Even though the fireball had been destroyed, but the dangerous presence filling the surroundings had not weakened but had increased. When the last spark fell, a change occurred. In the void, a faint incorporeal shadow appeared. A heavy water element-based power spread. Glittering and transparent rivers of water crisscrossed as they appeared around him. Some were fast, some were slow, some were clear like precious gems, some were as turbid as mud. The prison battlefield seemed to have returned to its usual state. Zuomo's consciousness didn't dare to stay back and suddenly spread out. A water arrow suddenly flew out of a river flow in front of him. This transparent water arrow announced the start of battle. Blue light suddenly exploded. Numerous water Yao arts flew out of the crisscrossing river flows. They covered the skies and ground like a thunderstorm. The Yao in the surroundings changed expression. Even those experts that thought they were skilled in water Yao arts were so shocked they almost jumped up when they saw the scene. This attack included 361 water Yao arts, from the simplest water arrow, the water bomb, to the combinations that formed water birds, water butterflies, to the higher-level water dragons and beasts. What was even more astounding was that each water bird seemed almost alive, the transparent feathers extremely detailed. The Yao at this time finally knew what terrifying level Qianlu Daren's water Yao arts had reached. Clear skies, thousand streams, awe-inspiring and terrifying. Shocked, the faces of the Yao became slightly intoxicated. Such beautiful water Yao arts definitely were peerless. As to Zuomo, who had activated the prison-breaking battle, no one looked at him again. Maybe he was amazingly talented, maybe he was the successor to a mysterious Yao art, but in front of Qianlu Daren, he was fated to lose his halo. He was fated to become as inconsequential as a speck of dust. Inside the battlefield, Zuomo's expression changed drastically. His vision was filled with the flooding blue sea that was made from the light of numerous water Yao arts. These glowing and beautiful water Yao arts were of different shapes and various speeds, but they all had the smell of danger. The hairs on Zuomo's body stood on end. Each water Yao art was not difficult or complex for him, but when 361 water Yao arts came at the same time, he was instantly in a life-threatening predicament, and did not even have room to dodge. Incredible water Yao arts. The scent of death was so close. His face was slightly cold, as though death's decaying face was pressed against his with a strange smile. His mind was blank, his limbs were wooden. All of his battle intent gone. All of his motivation became fragile like glass in front of such a peerless attack, and was instantly shattered. Zuomo's body was frozen and unable to move a finger. He could only look dazedly at the ocean-like blue light rushing towards him. The almost tangible water element power was pressing at his brows. He watched as he was going to be swallowed by this vast ocean of blue light. Damn it! Zuomo suddenly shook and woke up from his dumbstruck state. What followed right after was shame from the heart. He had actually been shocked by the enemy's attack, so frightened that he had lost all intent of rebelling. Damn it! Zuomo's eyes suddenly turned bright red like two balls of flame. The cold blood in his body suddenly boiled. Strong anger filled every part of his chest. He was furious because of his weakness. He felt furious for losing his resolve. Breaking through the hard ice, the erupting desire to battle. His anger and shame merged together. Zuomo instantly sank into a rage. His eyes crimson red. In a raging, Zuomo's hands closed together and then opened. Hiss crack, a blinding lightning net appeared between his hands. The thin silver lightning snakes curved as they swam. 30 thumb-sized hard lightning bolts moved uncertainly in the lightning net. Young fiend hard lightning. If Zuomo was clear in mind at this time, he would be joyful at his improvement in the Yao arts. When he used the young fiend hard lightning, this time, the presence it gave was completely different, and was very pressuring. No matter if it was the increase in spiritual power or his understanding of the Yao arts, all of it was completely on display through the young fiend hard lightning that he had used so many times. A furious bellow suddenly sounded from inside the blue light. Immediately after, a dot of silver energy suddenly lit up inside the blue light. Then this silver energy became increasingly brighter and bigger. What was this? The Yao watching were slightly shocked. They speculated on what kind of Yao art this silver energy was. Boom, boom, boom. Sounds of explosions continued inside the thick blue light like explosions from the bottom of the water. But quickly, the faces of the Yao who were more attentive were slightly weird. They found to their shock that the sound of the explosions had changed starting from the 10th explosion. It was not as deep and muffled, and was increasingly bright. Was it? They couldn't help but show shock in their eyes. The explosions were like thunder and rolled in waves. Just as the Yao were uncertain, An enormous sound exploded. Every Yao felt the silver light turn blindingly bright, and their vision instantly turned to white. When the light dissipated, and the eyes of the Yao recovered to look at the battlefield clearly, they instantly were amazed. How? How was it possible? In the battlefield, Zuomo's body was covered in smoke and fire. He cut a very sorry figure. But no Yao laughed at him now. They looked in disbelief at Zuomo, their mouths unconsciously sighing in shock. The yells of those young and beautiful female Yao came in waves. Their expressions were excited and uncontrollable. She was dumbstruck. Just now he had also lost himself in Qianlu Daren's water Yao arts and judged that Zuomo could not win. Then he saw the hardy Zuomo standing in the battlefield. Shocked, he had to sigh lightly. If before this battle, he had thought that Purple Lotus Yao Art House had a chance of recruiting the other, after this battle, he understood that Purple Lotus Yao Art House could not keep the other. Deep respect and joy stemming from the heart showed in Nanyu's crystal-like eyes. The yells of the female Yao quickly infected the other Yao. Even those people that usually did not show their emotions now used all kinds of ways to vent the excitement inside. In the last round, they saw the hope of Zuomo's victory. This was a prison-breaking battle. The one that broke one of the prisons would be able to rename the prison they defeated. This was an honor that each Yao dreamed of. This was the beginning of a legend. Right now this was happening in front of them. Such a lucky matter to be able to personally see it. This was also why they could not maintain their calm, and were so excited. The spectators were peerlessly excited. They used all kinds of methods to tell their friends and family what was happening. The people that had started recording Yao arts previously grinned up to their ears as though they had won the lottery. Just as every Yao was excited, Zuomo opened his eyes in the battlefield. The pure red eyes did not show any signs of dissipating. Still in a rage, Zuomo turned and looked around like a wild beast. The Yao on the outside gradually calmed down. The criss-crossing rivers in the battlefield had not disappeared. This meant that the prison-breaking battle had not finished. Qianlu Daren definitely left another move behind. Just as the Yao were speculating, they suddenly found the guy that was smoking in the battlefield looked around as though he was searching for prey. He quickly walked murderously towards one of the river flows. The abnormal movement in the battlefield instantly attracted all of the Yao's eyes. Some Yao with good eyes even noticed that Zuomo seemed to be shouting something. In the blink of an eye, Zuomo charged in front of a river flow. The movement that Zuomo made immediately after caused the hearts of all the Yao to stop. Outside the battlefield, it was a deathly silence. He inserted his hand into the river flow in front of him. This guy, what did he want to do? Chapter 350, You Dare Attack Ge. The raging Zuomo seemed to be insane, growling from the deepest part of his throat like a furious animal roaring. You dare attack G. Dare attack G. You will definitely die. Destroy you fuckers. Zuomo seemed to have been messed with. Angry, he searched for anything that he could attack. He changed his reactive and defensive posture, and attacked head-on. Didn't the water Yao arts fly out from these river flows? Then he will flatten all of these river flows. With both of his hands in the river flow he attacked. His fury and rage did not make him lose his judgment, but heightened the sensitive intuition of a wild beast. In just that instant, the structure of the river flow constructed of Yao arts seemed to flash across his mind like flowing water. Without needing to think, he started to deconstruct it. In his eyes, the enormous river flow was not any different than those rocks and flora he previously deconstructed, just a little bit bigger in scale. Who had left the impression of the river flows? What was Clear Sky's thousand flow? Prison-breaking battle? What was that? His eyes crimson red, and only held the most primitive crazy desire for battle and stubbornness. Deconstruction, deconstruction, complete deconstruction. The river flow was more complex than any Yao art he had deconstructed before, but Zuomo's attacking capabilities were far stronger in this moment than normal. His mind was unprecedentedly focused, his reactions unusually sensitive, and his intuition abnormally accurate. The hands that were in the river flow swayed gently like reeds. The water flow was lit up with a faint glowing light and had a blurry beauty. The Yao outside the battlefield were completely struck dumb by Zuomo's actions. Gulp. Simultaneous sounds of swallowing. It was so clear and ear-piercing in the deathly silent vast water-clear skies. No one cared. Their eyes couldn't bear to stray from the figure in the battlefield for a moment. Of course they could see that Zhuo was like a provoked lion who had started to furiously retaliate. Anyone who wasn't an idiot could see. But didn't this guy know this was the prison battlefield that Qianlu Darren set down? That was Qianlu Darren. The Qianlu Darren who had the appellation of Clear Sky Thousand Flows, the king of water Yao arts, the Qianlu Darren known in the world and had the qualifications to enter the Council of Elders. Shouldn't every Yao be shaking and filled with admiration and respect in front of the marks such a legend left behind? But that furious figure in their field of vision was such an eyesore, so painful that they felt disbelief. Why was he angry? How could he be angry? That was Qianlu Darren. Arrogance. A term jumped out in the hearts of the Yao. They could not believe that one of a younger generation dared to use this kind of posture to face the prison battlefield that Qianlu Darren had set down. No, this was not facing off, this was a challenge. That was right, this was a challenge. Heavens! There was a Yao who dared to challenge Qianlu Darren. All the Yao were shocked by their thoughts and looked dazedly at the battlefield. Nanyu did not notice Teacher Qi, whose mouth was wide and had a dazed expression. Her black eyes were tightly locked onto the hands that Zhuo had immersed into the river flows. When those hands lit up with the familiar glow, her eyes instantly became very wide. Darren was using deconstruction. For a whole moment, her mind was blank, but she shook and reacted. She did not know just how shocked the expression on her face was. She pressed hard against her furiously beating heart, her lips white from being bitten by her teeth as she stared at Darren's hands. As though that pair of hands had a kind of magnetism. If Darren was really deconstructing Qianlu Darren's. She almost didn't dare to keep thinking, but she knew that the scene in front of her was a once-in-a-thousand chance. To be able to see Darren deconstructing the water Yao art of Qianlu Darren. Even if it was not successful, it was a chance that would only appear once in her lifetime. The taste of blood suddenly spread inside her mouth. She instantly reacted. She had been too nervous and bit through the skin of her lip. However, this little distraction caused her heart to relax slightly. Out of the corners of her eyes, she noticed that people were casting recording Yao arts. She instantly thought, she was so stupid, she even forgot about the recording Yao arts. There were recoding Yao arts among all the Yao arts, and had the same purpose as the Xiujia's Mirage Jade Scrolls. However, the recording Yao arts could be stored in the sea of consciousness of the Yao, and were more convenient. She hurriedly cast a recording Yao art to prepare for her to study slowly when she returned. This entire distraction caused her to calm down greatly. She could finally act calmly. Watching the lights on Darren's hands, her mind quickly matched the corresponding Yao arts. Very quickly, the face that had just calmed down showed shock again. Little Yao arts. All of them were little Yao arts. Nanyu could clearly see. She was able to match the little Yao arts to the dozen of lights that lit up. When she realized this, she was truly stunned. Did Darren plan on using little Yao arts to deconstruct Qianlu Darren's water Yao arts? She had been amazed when Darren had used a little Yao art combination to defeat Qianlu Darren's fire Yao art. Even though she felt shocked, but she could still accept it. Qianlu Darren was famed for his water Yao arts, and no one had heard of his fire Yao arts. But Darren was now using little Yao arts to deconstruct the water Yao arts that Qianlu Darren had become famous for. This caused Nanyu's mind to short-circuit. No matter if it was the disbelief of the Yao outside the battlefield or Nanyu's blank mind, they did not affect Zhuo inside the battlefield at all. He wasn't deliberately using little Yao arts, but it was because he only knew little Yao arts. From when he had started to deconstruct Yao arts, Puyao had only taught him one method, to use little Yao arts. Puyao had also made little Yao arts appear wonderful, and that any Yao art could be deconstructed with little Yao arts etc. etc. This directly gave Zhuo the wrong impression, that all deconstruction should be done with little Yao arts. Also, these river flows that were in front of him in his view, were just some more complex Yao arts. So he did not hesitate in following his usual habits as he started to deconstruct it. What he did not know was that Pu Yao in his sea of consciousness was gaping and wide-eyed. The usually cold and evil face was dumb, and his eyes had almost dropped out. There was only one thought left in his mind. This guy was using little Yao arts to deconstruct. This river flow was more complex than any object that Zuomo had encountered in vast water-clear skies. He was even able to see the deep laws of water, Yao arts within them. However, there was no true difference in Zuomo's eyes. It was just more complex. When the raging Zuomo encountered a complex problem, his response once again was unexpected to Pu Yao. He didn't become more restless, but he was like a lion that met a comparable rival. His desire to fight and compete expanded. He had attacked first, and unconsciously became the proactive one. The lights on his hands continuously changed, and the rate of change accelerated, so fast that it was hard to decipher. The speed that his hand cast little Yao arts continuously grew faster. In a short time, it surpassed the fastest speed he could cast at. Zuomo did not notice this, but he was clear that just this speed was not enough to deconstruct the river flow in front of him. Zuomo's repeated attacks of little Yao arts instantly caused the river flow to retaliate. The river flow in front of him suddenly lit up with faint light. In the void, it looked like a glowing belt of light that floated. Zuomo made a muffled grunt and his crimson-red eyes became even more reddened. Just now, 5 water Yao arts had silently sneaked near him from the river flow. He had almost been hit. The raging Zuomo became even more furious. Without another word, the rate of little Yao art changes on his hands increased another step. The speed he was casting little Yao arts now was 2 times his fastest speed. The effect was immediately seen. The peaceful river flow suddenly severely rippled. The river flow in front of Zuomo suddenly shook fiercely like the twisted body of a snake in pain struggling fiercely. In response, the speed of the river flow also increased. Numerous translucent schools of fish appeared in the river flow. These schools of fish all had various shapes, their bodies transparent and made completely of water. If they were not seen from at a close distance, it was very difficult to detect them. There were so many schools of fish that they could not be counted. Once they were formed, they furiously leaped towards Zuomo's hands in the river flow. His mind unprecedentedly focused, Zuomo instantly noticed the change of the river flow. But his feeling was completely different than those of the spectators. These furiously charging schools of fish, in his mind, were just new changes in the structure of the Yao art making up the river flow. He didn't have any fear, and felt very excited because this meant that his deconstruction method was right. The river flow had detected the danger, which was the reason it retaliated so fiercely. Come on, baby. Zuomo's blood rose to his head, his desire for battle rising to a peak. The little Yao arts his hands were casting were even more insane, and became faster. His 2 hands turned to one ball of intangible shadows. It was impossible to see his 10 fingers clearly. His consciousness and finger movements were unusually in sync at this moment. With the smallest change of his finger, his consciousness would automatically make the corresponding change. Lights flew between his flying hands with astounding speed. Some of these various colored lights headed straight for the schools of fish. Some grouped together, and there were even several dozen that welcomed the school of fish like a net. Zuomo felt unspeakably great. The little Yao arts seemed to have become an instinctive part of him, and he had no problems casting them. But he did not immerse himself in the feeling of pleasure. He only had one target in his eyes. Deconstruction. Complete destruction. He was going to completely deconstruct this damned river flow. Dare attack G. Die. All die. Faster. Even faster. Just a bit more. The speed of the 2 hands seemed to suddenly decrease. If it was put in slow motion, one would find the practice motion seemed to pause, but this stop was very short, so short that people would find it hard to detect. After this extremely short pause, the 2 hands that had been blurry into one ball slowly separated. 2 balls of shadow, 2 balls of furiously changing light balls. The river flow that had been vibrating fiercely suddenly stopped. The body of the continuously struggling, glittering, snaking river seemed to freeze in this moment. The rushing river flows around, the spraying waves, they all stopped in the sky. Time seemed to suddenly stop. All the river flows in the entire prison battlefield froze, silent and motionless. Chapter 351. Thousand Flow Water Breath Pia Pia Pia. The dense sounds of corn popping rang without warning. With Zuomo's hands as the starting point, the explosions rapidly spread with astounding speed towards the two ends of the river flow. When it reached the very end, the entire river flow was bombed into countless snowy white water foam by another even stronger explosion. Zuomo's figure was instantly swallowed by the wave of water foam. The fine water foam was like snowflakes which had been blown free, somber and beautiful. This beautiful scene was forever imprinted upon the minds of the female Yao that were watching. The desolate and silent void, the sky full of snowflakes that had been thrown about. The scene was picturesque. It wasn't just the female Yao. Even those male Yao that only admired strength were shocked by the scene in front of them. However, they quickly broke free of their shock. The deathly silent vast water-clear skies seemed to be suddenly ignited. The sound wave instantly swallowed all of the Yao. The Yao could not hear other people's words, not even their own words, but they were so excited they could only uncontrollably shout in awe. Heavens, what did I just see? Who can tell me? Too crazy. Too crazy. Impossible. This is impossible. This is Qianlu Daren's water Yao arts. Qianlu Daren's water Yao arts. A male Yao held his head as he looked dazedly at the battlefield and murmured. Leng Yu and Chang Zheng looked soullessly at the battlefield. All the power they had seemed to have been drained away. They didn't even have the strength to speak. Compared to the disbelief and shock of the male Yao, the female Yao were very excited and exuberant. Oh, so handsome. Who knows who this guy is? I definitely have to pursue him. He is too handsome, too intoxicating. A beautiful female Yao's face was blushing as she spoke. So beautiful, he definitely is a romantic Yao. Another female Yao's eyes were intoxicated, and her face adoring. The excited Nanyu was instantly shocked inside and out. She shook, and the hairs on her body began standing up. Then she couldn't help but think, if Darren heard this, she didn't know how he would respond. This thought flashed through her mind before disappearing. She suppressed her excitement and started to think back to the little Yao arts that Darren had just cast. She was very familiar with little Yao arts. If she could see it, she definitely could quickly identify what kind of little Yao art it was. But the light that just covered Darren's hands was completely different than the little Yao arts that she had seen before. Had Darren used new Yao arts? This suspicion flashed past her mind. She shook her head. Intuition told her that Darren had still used little Yao arts. She didn't recognize those strange lights, but they seemed to be slightly familiar. Her eyes suddenly widened. She thought of a possibility. If the speed that little Yao arts were cast was fast enough, and broke through the normal barrier, the shock of Qianlu Daren's water Yao arts being defeated was a far greater blow to all the Yao than the fireball being dissipated before. Qianlu Daren had been young when he had set vast water-clear skies, but the male Yao in the battlefield certainly did not appear to be of a great age. Qianlu Daren had established his name of Clear Skies Thousand Flow. It was possible to predict that the mysterious male young Yao in the battlefield would be known throughout the world regardless of whether he finished the prison-breaking battle in the end. Previously, everyone had felt Mo had been too arrogant to challenge Qianlu Daren's water Yao arts, but right now, many Yao were seriously considering how probable it was that Mo could win. The short attack allowed them to understand the mysterious young male Yao in the battlefield had potential no less than crystal clear thousand flow. This world was really crazy. A legend that only existed in heroic tales was really happening in front of them. The feeling of dreamy surrealism made many Yao felt dazed for a moment. Qi's mouth was bitter as he grimaced. He knew his plan had failed. Qi couldn't predict what level Nanyu's strange Corson would reach, but the power that he displayed now was not lacking compared to the young Clear Skies Thousand Flow. A genius whose future was limitless. Was it even possible that the little purple lotus Yao art house could recruit him? Strange cousin isn't just strange, he had some talent. The tree Yao carelessly praised as though what he had just seen was a normal house battle. Every single blossom on the flower Yao's body flipped like numerous pairs of eyes simultaneously rolling their eyes. The other students at the side really could not resist themselves due to the tree Yao's otherworldly conduct. Shut up. Before they had felt that Zuomo's conduct was full of ignorance about his own abilities, But now Zuoyamo had risen to a height that they could admire. In their view, even the house elder of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House might not have the qualifications to judge Zuoyamo. So what was the tree Yao? How could he speak so grandly? The tree Yao waved his branches in shock. Don't you also feel the same? So strange. Has some skill. Really strange. How can you be more strange than the strange cousin? This time, even the other Yao that had been preparing to mock saw the situation clearly and shrunk back. To argue with this deluded person was to find displeasure for themselves. Before the fine snowy white water foam had dissipated, there was another string of explosions and the layers of snowy white foam rippled. The attention of all the Yao were attracted. The explosions came endlessly. Each Yao's water Yao arts were different, and the water breath they would comprehend would vary. When Yao that comprehended water breath cast water Yao arts, the power was much greater than normal water Yao arts. As the cultivation deepened, the comprehension of water breath would continuously change. The more the comprehension of water breath was perfected, the deeper the understanding of water Yao arts. Comprehending water breath was the most important badge for every water art cultivating Yao to have a deep understanding. Countless Yao who had spent decades cultivating water Yao arts were unable to comprehend water breath. It was not strange or unexpected that Qianlu Darren had comprehended water breath when he was young. But that attributes that Qianlu Darren's water breath showed made every Yao feel awe. Vast and full of life. The more the Yao was skilled in water Yao arts, the faster their hearts beat. Shouldn't such high-level laws only appeared on those old Yao that had cultivated for centuries? Zuoyamo was also very shocked. He was very familiar with water element spells. Even though water element spells and water Yao arts were completely different, but the base source of water did not change. This presence was not dominating, but it was extremely pure. Then an unprecedented feeling of anger filled every pore of Zuomo's body. He wasn't a greenhorn that just stepped onto the battlefield. When this water breath appeared, he instantly found the terrifying power under its warm and peaceful surface. It was like a basin of cold water was poured from his head to his toes, and cooled his heart. Zuoyamo found that, in front of this vast presence full of life, he was so minuscule he was like a speck of dust. Minuscule like a speck of dust. A dot of light suddenly appeared in Zuomo's eyes that were still bloodshot. It was like the spark that lit up in the wild. He raised his face and looked forward as though he was going to penetrate the thick white water foam with his eyes. He suddenly smiled, with the mannerism of a peerless expert, filled with nonchalance. The curve of his mouth increased until the corners of his mouth reached his ears, and revealed the snowy white, neat and sharp teeth. The tone of his voice as it came out was completely opposite his aloof appearance. It was gritted through his teeth, and was filled with undisguised ferocity. Good dislikes people that never commit the most. The murderous Zuoyamo started his insane actions. A golden light flashed on his back, and a pair of faint golden and transparent wings appeared. Countless hair-thin gold threads climbed up from the bottom of Zuomo's feet, until they entirely covered his legs. The golden threads suddenly tightened as though they tied up his legs. Light void wings, golden crow feet. Immediately after, numerous hard lightning appeared and floated around Zuoyamo to form a thick net of lightning. Yang Fiend Hard Lightning. 108 bolts of Yang Fiend Hard Lightning. After finishing all this, Zuoyamo didn't raise his head, and his hands started to swipe and move with difficulty. Chapter 352. The reappearance of Wasteland's sacrificial art. A gray shadow flew out from Zuomo's right hand. The gray shadow was like a wasteland beast that had left its cage. It grew in size, and the deep hissing it made shocked people down to their souls. Archaic Wasteland sacrificial art. The last joker in Zuomo's hands was unhesitatingly thrown out at this moment. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao had a complicated expression, one that Zuoyamo would think was spectacular at this time. His expression was complex and showed a faint bitterness. The archaic Wasteland sacrificial art was the Yao art that his teacher had created. Teacher had never hidden any part of it from him. He could recite any part of the Yao art, but even so, after 1,000 years, he still could not successfully cast this Yao art. Thinking back to his nickname of Encyclopedia of Yao Arts, it seemed full of irony. Archaic wasteland sacrificial art. Looked simple, but it actually was complex in many places. Otherwise, how could Pu Yao still not be able to find the method to cast it after so many years had passed? Last time, he had only wanted to try, and just gave a few words of guidance. He had not expected Zuomo to successfully cast the art. Today, Zuomo's movements were still unpracticed, but he had successfully cast it again. It was enough to show that he had grasped the crux of this Yao art, and his success was not just a matter of luck. What was an incredibly difficult Yao art in Pu Yao's eyes was easily grasped by Zuomo, and without the other knowing its difficulty, other than bitterness and mockery, he couldn't help but admire Zuomo's talent. Thinking back carefully, he found that inexperienced youth he had first met was more average in all areas compared to the present. This guy's staying power was very strong. He suddenly snickered. His consciousness was greater than Zuomo's. The prison battlefield could block Zuomo's consciousness, but could not stop Pu Yao's consciousness. Pu Yao knew everything about what was happening outside. His mood instantly made a 180-degree turn, especially when he saw the spectacular expressions of the spectating Yao. Maybe it was pretty good to have such a student. Even though Zuomo was not a Yao, and was a human, but in the eyes of Pu Yao, who usually did not tread the conventional path, this wasn't a concern at all. At some time in the future, he definitely had to urge Zuomo to go to the Yao world. It would be really fun to cause a storm. Imagining the shocked expressions of those old guys, he couldn't help but roar with laughter. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's free yet somewhat insane laughter echoed. Zuomo did not hear Pu Yao's laughter. His mind was focused as he cast the archaic wasteland sacrificial art. The simple yet authoritative presence was like a vicious wasteland beast slowly walking out of the mist. The oncoming presence was suffocating. Its movements were not fast, but were filled with perfect ease. It suddenly stopped its movement. The spectating Yao felt their throats tighten as though a noose had been suddenly tightened around their necks. They couldn't breathe. Terror suddenly jumped from their feet up, the bone-aching coldness spreading through their entire bodies. Their minds completely blank. He seemed to see an ancient wasteland beast the size of a mountain looking down indifferently. The mountain-like presence covered the world, and bore down like a mountain. The Yao lost their courage. They wanted to turn and run. Those that were less daring collapsed onto the ground. Even those guys who thought themselves powerful had ashen faces at this moment. Qianlu Daren's water breath was vastness and full of life. And this gray figure was filled with tyranny and destruction. The second prison. Numerous Yao suddenly stopped what they were doing at the same moment. They raised their heads in shock. A dangerous presence filled with tyranny and destruction rushed past them like a gust of wind. The enormous second prison sank into a strange silence. A moment later, these Yao that had been hard at work unhesitatingly dropped what they were doing and started to fly in the same direction. If one looked from above the second prison, they would find that numerous figures seemed to be attracted to one location. It was the entrance to the first prison. Feeling the danger of the archaic wasteland's sacrificial art presented, the vast water breath that had been warm and peaceful a moment ago suddenly roiled. Zuomo seemed to be situated in an angry ocean. The enormous waves that charged up could swallow him at any instant. These furious waves contained power that could crumble mountains and upend seas. If he was touched the tiniest bit, even with the great Mo physique, there would only be one outcome. His body completely shattered. The complete reverse of the peace and harmony, the prison battlefield had turned to the other extreme. Zuomo understood this represented another attribute of the water breath. After experiencing the voyages on endless ocean, he understood just how the furious water could be terrifying powerful. His surroundings were filled with abundant moisture. Almost in the blink of an eye, a boundless ocean appeared under Zuomo's feet. Minuscule, Zuomo once again felt just how minuscule he was. In front of this raging and vast water breath, people were forced to admit their insignificance. Zuomo bit his lips tightly and tried to maintain his resolve. His hands were still methodically swiping in the air. All of his strength was gathered in his body. Come. Zuomo suddenly raised his flushed eyes. Almost at the same time, Two empty red lights suddenly lit up in the gray shadow. They were like a pair of vicious eyes. The ignited red eyes were lantern-sized, and like giving the touch of life to a painting, the figure of the wasteland beast that had been slightly intangible did not seem to feel transient any longer. It was alive. Even though the figure of the wasteland beast was not defined, but all of the Yao had a strong feeling, it was alive. The tyrannical and destructive presence suddenly exploded like a volcano and headed into the clouds. It really was alive. The spectating Yao all shook. The two terrifying presences conflicted. They were like beauties that had just been abused getting abused again. Among the crowds of Yao, light flashed occasionally outside the prison battlefield. Each flash of light meant that a Yao could not withstand the two oppressive presences, and was forced out of the 10-finger prison. Inside the 10-finger prison, if their mental defenses were broken, they would be forcibly ejected from the 10-finger prison. This kind of situation was not common. The Yao cultivated their consciousness. In terms of mental strength, they were much stronger than Xiuzha or Mo. But today, after the successive blows from two peerlessly presences, the Yao that usually cultivated in the first prison could not bear it. Even Nan Yu only stood for 3 breaths before she was pushed out of the 10-finger prison. In comparison, Leng Yu and Chang Zheng's situation was much better. They usually cultivated in the second prison, but there was no ease on their faces. They seemed to be struggling to bear it. The other Yao, fortunate enough to remain, all had pained expressions on their faces, but no one retreated of their own accord. Everyone knew that the face-off between the two presences that was coming would be a great conflict. To be able to personally see a battle of such a level, even if they had to pay a great price to watch, they would unhesitatingly choose to do so, much less just tolerate some pain. This kind of opportunity was rare. The lantern-sized vicious eyes glowed with red light. The waves that seemed to cover the sky did not seem to affect it. It suddenly opened its mouth. The open mouth suddenly formed a great suction force. Numerous waves were forcibly pulled away from the water by this force, and flew towards the open mouth of the wasteland beast. The furious ocean suddenly paused shortly. The surface of the water that had instantly calmed rippled. It was rebelling against this suction. The light of the two enormous pupils in the gray shadow increased. The suction power increased. Whoosh whoosh. Like a whale drinking rivers, numerous pillars of water were sucked into the mouth of the wasteland beast. The wasteland beast's mouth seemed to be a bottomless hole. No matter how much water entered, it showed no signs of expanding. But how could the vast ocean formed by the water breath be defeated so easily? That was the water breath that crystal void Qianlu Darren had left behind. The vast ocean was colossal, and showed no signs of shrinking. Many schools of fish suddenly appeared under the water. These schools of fish were different than the schools of fish that appeared before. They were of flesh of blood. Life. Zhuo suddenly understood. These schools of fish were truly lives that had been created by the water breath. There were innumerable schools of fish. They furiously leapt at the wasteland beast. The strong vitality they carried was like boiling water and caused fear. The shaking vitality did not serve as nutrients, but poison. This blow was like the grass that broke the camel's back for the Yao who had been struggling outside the battlefield. Innumerable lights flashed. None of the Yao outside the battlefield remained. For the first time, the wasteland beast showed wariness. These fragile lives caused the powerful wasteland beast to feel danger. Zhuo was very surprised. Just as Zhuo felt shock, the lantern eyes of the wasteland beast suddenly blinked slyly. Zhuo was shocked still by this person-like action of the wasteland beast. The figure of the wasteland beast suddenly started to change. Its body suddenly turned to shadow and divided into a top and bottom half. Almost at the same time, Zhuo's hands seemed to be out of his control as they unconsciously started to move. Little Yao Arts, number 1, number 500. The top half of the gray shadow suddenly started to furiously spin clockwise, while the bottom half spun counterclockwise. That absurd and conflicting feeling appeared again. Zhuo felt as though he was being pulled by 2 wagons in opposite directions, and was unspeakably uncomfortable. After having experienced it before, Zhuo instantly understood what he needed to do. Straight pass-through form. A power that was not strong instantly penetrated the centers of the 2 Yao arts. Under the feet of the wasteland beast that had turned to a whirlwind, a thread of white light suddenly rose, and above its head, a blackness started to spread. In the blink of an eye, the gray shadow turned to black and white parts that were clearly defined. A black and white millstone. The furiously turning millstone produced a much stronger suction force than before. The schools of fish that came from all directions were like thin streams that were pulled into the millstone before they could even resist. There was no flesh or blood flying. Everything was so silent it looked like a picture. In the center of the millstone, a glowing bead gradually took shape. The vast water breath filled with life quickly decreased, and the bead in the middle of the millstone became larger and glowed like a drop of dew. The blood in Zhuomo's eyes gradually retreated. His consciousness was extremely drained. Having recovered his calm, the first action Zhuomo did was gather his last thread of strength, grabbing the bead, and shoving it into his mouth. His vision darkened and he instantly lost consciousness. Chapter 353. Spread Weisheng progressed with difficulty. Each step required a great deal of concentration from him. His clothing was in tatters and covered in dust. His entire person looked very fragile. Only that pair of black eyes showed a sharp light that seemed to penetrate the thick fiendish mist. The dangers of this journey was hundreds of times greater compared to this trip in the Sword Cave. Those soul beasts that could take form were especially vicious and cunning. They seemed to be one with the fiend mist, would silently approach to ambush and were hard to defend against. They also had an endless supply of illusory techniques that enchanted a person's mind. If it wasn't for the strength of Wei Sheng's resolve, he would have fallen a long time ago. They came like the wind, their speed was lightning fast, their attacks vicious. If he was the slightest bit careless, he would land in a precarious situation. In the most dangerous incident, he had encountered 3 fiend soul beasts. What surprised him was that these 3 fiend soul beasts knew to cooperate among themselves. In that battle, he had been wounded in a dozen places. The most serious wound was so deep his rib bones could be seen. If he did not have healing Lingdan in his dimension ring, he would have died from the wound alone. However, Weisheng was still Weisheng. Having left the sect to come to such an unfamiliar and dangerous place, it was as though he had been released from a heavy burden. The chains on his heart were shattered. He was like a bird that had escaped the cage and was unspeakably relaxed. He did not feel uncomfortable at the dangers in front of him. He continuously experienced the ambush of all kinds of fiend soul beasts, the illusory techniques that ensnared a person's mind. These dangers did not make him want to retreat, but tempered his sword heart, even making it more refined and pure. His talent in cultivating the sword was very exceptional in the beginning. The worldly apparition when he entered Juji had caused everyone to feel anticipation about his future. Even Lin Qian of mysterious origins treated his talent slightly favorably. It was possible to see just how talented he was. Having rediscovered the calm of his sword heart, and adding on the honing from the dangerous situation, he was like a treasure sword uncovered from the dust, and gradually showed his sharpened edges. There wasn't much Ling power left. He thought inside as his gaze looked towards the depths of the fiendish mist. Previously, sword essence had exploded suddenly in the direction he had been traveling. This gave him hope. He had a strong feeling that he was not far from his target. But right now he needed to think of everything he could do and control the consumption of Ling power. He was like the most frugal miser. If he could use 1 thread of Ling power, he would not use 2 threads. He also tried to absorb Ling power from the Jingshi in the dimensional ring, and tried to purify it of impurities. He did everything he could do. Even so, he was a sorry figure. Caressing the black sword in his hands, he raised his head again, and walked forward with determination. He trusted the sword in his hands. Xixiang fainted again? Gong Suncha gazed curiously at the unconscious Zhuomo. He reached out to poke and see if Xixiang was really unconscious. The again of Gong Suncha's words made the other people's features twitch. Darren must be cultivating a special technique. Xieshan found a shoddy excuse. Zhuomo was his boss. He had to help disguise it. Shulong's mouth imperceptibly curved up, but he quickly became stern again. Gong Suncha's face was regretful as he muttered, "I had been hoping he could help me fish today. Darren will rest. He probably will wake up soon, Xiaoshan could only say. He had checked. There were no problems with Darren's body. Xu Long had been planning on reporting to Zhuimo. He could only leave now. He was the leader of the hardship guards. There was a pile of matters waiting for him every day. The camp of the hardship guard was always set up separately. Walking into the camp, it was very busy. For other people, the abundant black fiendish energy was akin to poison, but for them, it was nothing less than the best nutrients. When will Darren come to the camp? When one saw Xu Long, his eyes lit up, and he ran over with his black spear. The other hardship guards also crowded over. Xu Long felt ahead but still said expressionlessly, Darren is cultivating now. When Darren finishes, I will report at the first moment. Oh. Everyone's sounds carried slight disappointment. In this period of time, the hardship guard had all improved greatly. There were many people that had finished forming their weapons. Almost half of the guard camp had finished forming their weapons. Compared to before, their combat capabilities were much stronger. Some more accomplished, like one, rocketed in their improvement. In this short amount of time, he had become the second strongest in guard camp after Xu Long. He had just woken up from his meditation, and had gained greatly. He was very innocent, and he desired Darren's praise. Everyone in the camp had improved greatly. Every one of the flower slaves had comprehended a few spells. Xu Long also hoped that Darren could come to the camp. That would greatly increase morale. He hadn't expected that Darren was unconscious again. He could only go tomorrow, Xu Long thought. Nanyu rubbed her forehead as her head ached. Being forcibly ejected from the 10-finger prison meant that her consciousness had been wounded slightly. But at this time, she did not put any attention on her lightly wounded consciousness. She only wanted to know one thing now. Had Darren finished the prison-breaking battle? She wanted to enter vast water clear skies again, but before her consciousness recovered, she had no way of entering vast water clear skies. Tightly biting her lips, her heart was in the air. What would vast water clear skies look like now? But she could only be impatient. She comforted herself. By tomorrow, she would know the result. No matter if Darren had completed the prison-breaking battle or not, this matter would spread tomorrow, and the result would naturally float to the surface. Darren had accidentally activated the prison-breaking battle. Due to this, other than the first and second prison, no one had managed to rush over in time. Right now, the news had not spread, but she dared to guarantee that by tomorrow, this matter would shake all of the Yao world. This was a prison-breaking battle. She suddenly became excited. To be able to follow such a Darren. What honor this was. In the Yao word, powerful Yao would usually have many followers. Many of them would become their Darren students, but most of them would only have the identity of a follower. However, this did not mean that they were lower than others. The guidance of a master, even if it was just a tiny bit, would greatly benefit them. Even more, Darren had promised to pass her South Sky Arrow art. Thinking about this, she unconsciously tightened her fisted hands. Nanyu, you have to work hard, and cannot disappoint Darren. She repeatedly motivated herself, her little face filled with determination. She understood her responsibilities. South Sky Wisteria clan had already declined and was tiny. She did not think about recovering the past prosperity of the Wisteria clan of the South Sky. Her only hope was to use her efforts to help the clansmen leave behind their situation of poverty. At least, they would have better lives. Nanyu, you can do it, she told herself. The vast ocean seemed borderless. Water shifted at a part of the ocean, and in a moment, a terrifying whirlpool over 200 li in diameter formed. The whirlpool spun with astonishing speed, the strong force pulling the center of the whirlpool to collapse into itself. A deep passage appeared in the center of the whirlpool. A handsome male flew out of the passage. His features were soft in its lines, a warm and elegant smile on his face that would create positive feelings, and had a transparent crystal on his forehead. He broke vast water clear skies, and swallowed my water breath bead as well. The male shook his head and smiled. Looks like a pretty talented young little Yao. Just as he was talking to himself, a dash of fire landed from the sky. Haha. Little Qian Qian, your vast water clear skies was broken. A face appeared in the mountain-sized ball of fire. He was roaring with amused laughter. Hearing the other's appellation of him, Qianlu's forehead twitched. But he knew if he argued with this unreasonable guy, that was definitely going up against a wall. He could only smile and say, 300 years have passed, it's time for it to be broken. The fire-faced person that had been laughing at his misfortune a moment ago couldn't help but snort. 300 years and no one came out. That group of old guys talk that whole set every day. There's no use. Qianlu hurriedly urged. That can't be said. Even though there are no experts, but their methods at nurturing intermediate level Yao is very effective. The temper of the fire-faced person was very explosive. He swore, effective my ass. No experts. There won't be one to be able to be seen in public. They have it hard. Qianlu sighed. Supposedly, a few good seedlings have come from the Yao art houses. They can be considered to have set up a path. The fire-faced person's temper lowered slightly, but he still growled. It's too late. We've already started the battle with the Xiuzha. If they came a few years earlier, then that would have worked. Qianlu said with a smile. It may not be a bad matter for them to arrive in time for this great battle. Without the tempering of true battle, it is hard for these people gain strength. In any case, you always have excuses. The fire-faced person clearly was impatient, and did not want to stay on this topic. He changed direction. What, don't you want to know what the new first prison looks like? Qianlu blinked. There is still one day until the new first prison will form. The flames around the body of the fire-faced person stilled. He had forgotten this. He hurriedly glossed over. What do you think this boy's origins are? How can I guess? I'll know when I see tomorrow. Hee, I can't wait. Vast water-clear skies had been broken. The news quickly spread through all of the large Yao Jies like it had wings, and instantly created waves. Right now, the Yao army was winning on the front lines. This news was a boost in morale for the troops. All of the Yao felt excited. Was a new era about to come? The prison-breaking battle that had not been activated for 300 years once again entered everyone's view. Some old Yao were so excited they started to reminiscence about the prosperity of the Yao before the 1,000-Year War. However, no one knew the origins of the mysterious guy. All kinds of recording Yao arts appeared, but people quickly found that all the recording Yao arts did not have an ending, lacking the most important and crucial part. Speculation and discussion filled every corner of the Yao world. Each Yao was waiting for the arrival of the second day, waiting for the new first prison to take form. Each Yao desired to know. What would the new first prison be like? Chapter 354. The Wasteland Beast Chessboard. Bam bam bam. The sound of knocking on the door woke Nanyu up. She really had been too tired yesterday and slept deeply. She opened her heavy eyes, and opened the door to the room. When she saw the people that come outside, all the drowsiness instantly disappeared. The person that had knocked was Qi. His face was full of a warm smile. Behind him was a large crowd of people. Nanyu found many of them familiar to the eye. But when she saw the house elder of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House, she couldn't help but still. Nanyu, did we disturb your rest? Qi's tone was filled with warmth and concern, and none of the usual sternness, as though he had become a completely different person. Oh no. Nanyu instinctively shook her head. She finally recalled what those old-looking people that looked familiar were. They were the elders of the Yao Art House. 2312. Nanyu's scalp turned numb. All of the elders of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House Council of Elders was standing in front of her home. These elders that usually were high up and indifferent all had smiles on their faces, and harmonious auras. All of the upper level of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House was here without an exception. Seeing Nanyu still where she stood, Qi instantly understood what it was. He couldn't help but smile and say, "What? Are you not going to invite us in to sit?" Oh. Nanyu finally reacted and seemed to wake up from her dream. She hurriedly moved away from the door. "Please come in, come in." The procession streamed in. The house elder examined the bare room and said with a slight smile, "Student Nanyu is really living simply, as expected of the role model of our house's other students. Our other students should learn from this valuable attitude. Nan Yu sweated. She wasn't simple, she was just poor. At this moment, she did not know how to respond, and could only murmur in agreement. However, the house elder's tone changed as he said passionately, "As the chief student elder of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House, student Nan Yu should shoulder a heavier burden. This is too far away, and not convenient. Ooh, the house's Purple Lotus Park has a Spirit Clarity residence still empty. Student Nan Yu will find it much more convenient when moved over there." Chi's gaze showed threads of admiration. Spirit Clarity residence was the highest level of residence in the Purple Lotus Yao Art House. There were only 3 suites in total. The house elder actually gave one to Nan Yu. The most valuable part of the Spirit Clarity residence was the Spirit Clarity pool. It could increase the cultivation speed of the consciousness. To say nothing of the high price in constructing the Spirit Clarity pool, it could only be built on special geological forms. After that, the elders took their turns to persuade and were unparalleled in their friendliness. Nan Yu seemed to go through the entire process as though it was a dream. She did not know what to do. She only gradually refocused when the house elder and the others had left for a while. Chief Student Elder? She had become the Chief Student Elder? And they had given her a Spirit Clarity residence to use? Was she still dreaming? But when she pulled herself out of the initial excitement, she quickly understood the crux. It was not hard to guess what the attitude of the house elder and the elders were for. They were here for Darren. Even though they hadn't mentioned one word about Darren today. But Nan Yu was 100% certain that they had come for Darren. No, she had to report this to Darren. She suddenly remembered today was the day the first prison formed. Thinking to this, she instantly became excited. She inspected her consciousness. Even though she had not fully healed her injuries, but she had recovered enough to enter the first prison. She instantly entered meditation, and directly entered the first prison. Arg motherfucker, the Painswa Mo wailed. It had been a long time since his consciousness had been wounded. The long-absent pain appeared again. The feeling of pain seemed to have grown even stronger. This is the result of trying to show off. Puyao mocked neutrally. Ouch! Ouch, which guy was scheming against me? No, I can't have suffered for nothing. I have to return it. The Painswa Mo still exposed his vengeful nature. You aren't a match, Puyao said mercilessly. How can it be known without a fight? Tell me quickly. Zhuemo looked as though he would not give up and was murderous. Crystal Void Qianlu. Crystal Void Qianlu? What thing is that? Zhuemo's face was curious. It isn't a thing, just a 300 years little Yao. Che, just a 300-year little Yao. Zhuemo said unconcernedly. A tendon throbbed in Puyao's forehead. He forcibly suppressed it. He comprehended water breath. Water breath. Zhuemo instantly became alert and said braggingly. That was water breath? Didn't it get destroyed by my archaic wasteland sacrificial art? Your archaic wasteland sacrificial art. The tendon in Puyao's forehead jumped again. He pretended to be calm and said, that was an imprint he left behind 300 years ago. An imprint left 300 years ago. Zhuemo jumped in fright. In other words, he was this powerful 300 years ago. Right. The expression on Zhuemo's face changed as he said embarrassedly. Peace is valuable, peace is valuable. It's not good to fight and kill for nothing. Ignoring Puyao's disdainful gaze, he asked curiously, why did his imprint attack me? I didn't offend him. He finds you an eyesore. Puyao's caused Zhuemo's expression to become even more embarrassed. It seems that 10-Finger Prison is really a dangerous place. I should not go to such a kind of place. Puyao heard this and thought inside, no, if Zhuemo was afraid and did not go to the 10-Finger Prison in the future, it would be a troublesome matter. He was very familiar with Zhuemo's personality. This guy could not be forced, and could only be tempted. If there were enough benefits, this guy would howl and charge. There's a bit of danger, but there are also many benefits. Puyao's expression was indifferent as though he was speaking objectively. You destroyed his imprint, and swallowed his water breath bead. Haven't you felt anything? Zhuemo finally remembered after Puyao's remembered the bead he had swallowed before he had fainted. He hurriedly made an examination and immediately found the water breath bead. A glowing dewy bead floated in his sea of consciousness. The sea of consciousness where a sea of flames danced had a lively and abundant humidity. The faint moisture spread from the dew bead. Wherever the moisture passed, the wounded consciousness was like burnt soil receiving nurturing, and became full of life again. Zuomo felt unspeakably comfortable. This was something really good. Zuomo's mind moved. The dew bead flew in front of him, and a warm moisture blew into his face. The water breath bead can heal? To make Zuomo understand the value of the water breath bead, Puyao naturally spoke endlessly. Not just healing. With it, you will have an easier time comprehending your own water breath. Once you have comprehended water breath, it will merge into the water breath that you comprehend. You will have an easier time casting the great majority of water Yao arts and water element spells. Their power would also be greater. This powerful? Zuomo felt very excited. He was clear to the value embodied. With this water breath bead, it meant that his affinity to water had increased. This would increase the strength of a major type of Yao arts and spells. Water element spells, Ji knows them. He cast a little art of cloud and rain with pride. A palm size could instantly floated in his palm. The cloud ball from the little art of cloud and rain. This time was different than before. The cloud ball seemed to be alive. The threads of rain that fell seemed to contain vitality. When they landed in Zuomo's palm, then sunk into Zuomo's skin and disappeared. Zuomo felt refreshed. The 6th level of little art of cloud and rain. Zuomo's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. Just with the addition of a water breath bead, his little art of cloud and rain had leveled up to the 6th level. The 6th level of little art of cloud and rain was significantly useful. Zuomo was overjoyed. Treasure. Great treasure. Can this even be called a treasure? Puyao seemed to know Zuomo's thoughts, and an imperceptible smile floated on the corners of Puyao's mouth. He continued to tempt Zuomo. The water breath was just from the prison-breaking battle of the first prison. Each prison of the 10-finger prison has something good. Only what is in the later prisons can be called treasures. Each prison has their own. Zuomo's eyes lit up. What? Are you interested? Puyao glanced at Zuomo with deliberate calmness. Interested. Very interested. Zuomo nodded frantically. He rubbed his palms and said warmly, Puyao, let's get them all. So many treasures, they can't be wasted. This will depend on your skills. Puyao did not refute it. The later prison-breaking battles will be more powerful than this. Countless Jingshur spun in Zuomo's eyes. He drooled and said with a stupid smile, That's nothing, we can wear them down, wear them to death. The water breath bead was wondrous as expected. Not long after, Zuomo's injured consciousness was healed. Zuomo was full of praise, and desired the other treasures even more. Let's go, you have not named your prison battlefield yet. Puyao said as he pulled Zuomo into vast water-clear skies. Zuomo looked at the unfamiliar environment, his mouth wide, and his face stunned. The crisscrossing river flows from before had all disappeared. The shards of stone under his feet had also disappeared. What replaced them were squares of different colors. The various colored tiles extended into the distance like an enormous chessboard. What is this? Nothing big. Puyao suppressed the shock inside and said in a normal tone. You broke the first prison left by someone before you, so the first prison will be reconstructed. Oh, so it's like that. Zuomo's face showed realization. He casually walked forward and stepped into a green square. There were no changes. He stepped into another square, and there was still no change. It just changed appearance. The shock in Zuomo's heart disappeared. He felt it was very boring, and his expression disappeared. Suddenly, the scene in front of him changed again. He seemed to have flown to a very high place, and was looking down from an aerial view. He saw an enormous chessboard. The disorderly tiles formed a strange shape. The figure seemed slightly familiar to Zuomo. He quickly understood what the pattern was. Wasteland beast. That was a wasteland beast. Create a name. Puyao's light voice sounded at Zuomo's ears. Wasteland beast chessboard. Zuomo's mind moved, and he blurted out. Boom boom boom. The sound was like thunder. The pattern of the wasteland beast on the chessboard seemed to suddenly become alive. A thread of gray smoke came out of the chessboard, and in a blink, turned to a wasteland beast. The lantern-sized red and vicious eyes, the bleak and disdainful presence, the roiling and shapeless body. It glanced at Zuomo and suddenly burrowed back into the chessboard. The chessboard under him once again became what it was originally. In the minds of the Yao that had excitedly charged into the first prison, 3 words floated up simultaneously: Wasteland Beast Chessboard. Chapter 355 Bidding. Wasteland Beast Chessboard. Nanyu couldn't resist repeating it lightly. The squares of various colors under her feet spread into the horizon without end. Lights occasionally flashed. Every Yao who entered the Wasteland Beast chessboard was filled with shock. There were no obstacles in their vision. They seemed to be on a broad plain. The Yao further away seemed like black dots in their field of view. The strange colored squares under their feet reminded them this was a place filled with weirdness. Some of the people that had been doubting the prison-breaking battle had their suspicions dissipate when they saw the completely transformed first prison. They stared dazedly with wide mouths as they looked at the borderless chessboard that was almost unimaginable. Nanyu fought free from her shock. She released a long breath. She was filled with curiosity. What was unique about Darren's Wasteland Beast chessboard? She wanted to try when a slightly cold voice sounded from behind her. "Pardon me, are you student Nanyu?" Nanyu turned around and saw a slightly thin but handsome youth standing with a smile. He bowed slightly. "This one is Lungyu, from Western Mountain Cold Clan." Western Mountain Cold Clan? Nanyu was slightly bewildered. The Wisteria clan of the South Sky might have a glorious past, but it had been in decline for a long time, struggling on the poverty line. How could Nanyu pay attention to those rich and powerful families? Lungyu responded very quickly. Seeing the expression on Nanyu's face, he understood that the other's birth was definitely very normal. He couldn't help but rejoice inside. Yesterday, the news he had sent back to the sect had attracted attention from the clan. For this, they had used all their power to investigate the origins of the mysterious prison-breaking Yao. Even though the origins of the prison-breaking Yao was a puzzle, but they still found some clues. For example, Nanyu. Up to here, there was nothing that Lungyu had to do. He did not have the qualifications for future matters. But his luck was really good, and coincidentally encountered Nanyu when he entered the Wasteland Beast chessboard. Towards a very alert Lungyu. How could he pass such a good chance? It was a pity that he wasn't the only one with good luck. Those that had the power to find Nanyu weren't just the Cold family. "Are you Miss Nanyu?" A ethereal-looking female clad in a white robe appeared at the side, and politely bowed to Nanyu. "This one is by Rolian." "Ah, such a coincidence." A brawny large male about 3 zhang tall appeared out of nowhere, and bowed with great politeness towards Nanyu. "Miss Nanyu and is Zhangzhe." Lungyu and Bai Rolian's expressions were not too good, but they were all from influential families, and had some shrewdness. Even though they were wary, but their faces quickly were covered with smiles again, as though they were good friends. Nanyu was not dumb. When she saw this, she knew what was happening, and grimaced inside. At this time, a voice that was like a blessing from heaven sounded at Nanyu's ears. "Nanyu!" Zuomo had detected Nanyu's position and ran over. Nanyu was his follower in name, and was really one of his people. Towards his own people, Zuomo usually cared for them. From their recent interactions, Zuomo felt that Nanyu was good in all areas and hard-working. She was worthy of being fostered. When Nanyu saw Zuomo, it was like she had seen her savior. Darren. Whoosh, the other 3 people's eyes landed on Zuomo. Even though they had all seen Zuomo's figure from the Yao recording art, but when they saw him from close up, they were still stunned by Zuomo's youth. Darren. The 3 of them were abnormally in sync as they respectfully bowed. The respect on their faces were not out of politeness but came from their hearts. They had a good family background, and received the best teachings. Their strength was far above those of their age, but all of this could not be discussed when compared with the Darren in front of them. In front of such a genius that was able to leave behind his mark on Yao society. What assets did they have to be proud of? Zuomo paused. These three people he did not know called him Darren? Their brains were wonky? He looked suspiciously at Nanyu and pointed at the trio. What is this? Darren, I'm not very clear either. Nanyu's expression was pitiable. Zuemo turned his face around. Who can tell me what is going on? As a boss of a group of experts, he naturally formed a presence over time. Once he was serious, the unquestionable tone made the trio's hearts shake. All three of them were smart. In that short sentence, the three could detect many things. Even Lung Yu, who had originally assumed that Zuemo came from an unknown family, changed his previous speculation. This junior is by Ro Lien, and is representing the White family to congratulate Darren for his successful prison breaking. Bai Ro Lien was the first to speak. Her tone was respectful, her voice was sweet and pleasing to hear. The White family has prepared some gifts for Elder. Darren, please accept them. Lung Yu and Song Zhe felt depressed. This wench had gone one step in front of them. They instantly felt as though they had eaten a fly, and were unspeakably uncomfortable. However, the two reacted quickly and hurried to speak. The Cold family. The Grey clan. Zuemo listened and generally understood what was going on. He waved his hand and interrupted the two people. All right, say what you need. One by one. Finishing, he pointed at Bai Ro Lien. You first. Bai Ro Lien was smug inside, but did not dare to forget herself. She respectfully said, The White family earnestly requests for Darren to enter the Peace River Yao Art House. The entire house will give you the best treatment. The White family is willing to give 6 million each year, and a heart spirit residence. The White family will pay for all of Darren's expenses, and Darren can cultivate all the Yao arts of the Peace River Yao Art House. Nanyu gaped. Heavens, 6 million each year. Even if she graduated from the Purple Lotus Yao Art House and found a job, her monthly income definitely would not surpass 1,000. Yet what was more valuable was that heart spirit residence. Compared to the spirit clarity residence that the house elder had given to her this morning, the heart spirit residence was even more expensive. A heart spirit residence's price on the market would start at 10 million on the market. Really generous. Nanyu's expression was stunned. Zuemo was very happy. Haha, so much Jingshi. Oh no, the Yao world should not be using Jingshi. But Zuemo understood that this definitely was not a low price. It could be seen from Nanyu's expression. However, Zuemo was a very experienced person. He had an innate intuition about bargaining. Adding on his wealth of battle experience, the three brats in front of him were three rich and sweet lambs. The sound of knives being honed sounded in Zuemo's heart, but his expression remained neutral as though he was a person who did not care for mortal matters. He pointed at Song Zhe and said, You talk. Song Zhe became alert. Darren, our clan is willing to give Darren 8 million annually. The clan does not have a heart spirit residence, but the clan is willing to provide Darren 3 golden souls each year. Bai Ro Lien's expression instantly became terrible. She was not shocked that Song Zhe was able to give a tribute of 8 million each year. What she was shocked about was golden souls. The rumor said that the Grey clan possessed a gold tree. It seemed that it was true. Lung Yu's expression was ashen. The last hope in his heart was destroyed. To say nothing about the fact the clan had not given him the power to negotiate. But even with the permission, he believed that the clan would not be able to give a price higher than this. It was not just the Cold clan was unable to do so, the White clan was also unable. When he saw Bai Ro Lien's black face, the depressed Lung Yu felt much better. Even though he didn't know what golden soul was, but his intuition told Zuemo this definitely was something rare and good. Golden soul. Pu Yao's voice trembled slightly. Take this one. Zuemo did not accept. He nodded to Song Zhe and then turned his gaze to Lung Yu. Lung Yu docilely said, Darren, we cannot give a price higher than brother Song Zhe. This result was not unexpected to Zuemo, something that even Pu Yao changed expression at. It definitely was something good. He guessed that Lung Yu could not give a higher price, but out of caution he still asked. Okay. Zuemo said to Song Zhe, You follow me. Nanyu, come as well. Song Zhe was overjoyed and hurried to follow. Bai Ro Lien's black expression disappeared. Lung Yu did not have any more interest in seeing the wasteland beast chessboard, and returned to report this matter. There was no one around. Zhuo Emo sat down and said to the two, "Sit." Song Zhe respectfully sat down, and Nan Yu sat down next to Zhuo Emo. In just this little while, Pu Yao quickly introduced Zhuo Emo to the Golden Soul. The Golden Soul was born from the Golden Tree, and was very rare. Pu Yao had assumed that the Golden Tree had gone extinct. The Golden Soul could quickly strengthen the consciousness, and also expand the sea of consciousness. What it was most valuable at was that it could strengthen the spirit, and cause it to become even more pure and refined. Yao cultivated the consciousness. How strong the consciousness was what determined strength. But the strength of the consciousness could not cause it to become pure and refined. Pure spirit was even more stabilized, and the sea of consciousness was even more secure. Unpure consciousness would become a hidden weakness. The deeper one cultivated, the more dangerous it would become. Golden Soul was a great treasure that was not easily found. And for Pu Yao, whose spirit was greatly wounded, Golden Soul was what he desperately needed to heal himself. So when he heard the words Golden Soul, he couldn't control himself. What Zhuo Emo cared about was another problem. The only place he could interact with them was in the Wasteland Beast chessboard. To say nothing of the fact he was now trapped in the ancient battlefield. Even if he left, he could not come to the Yao world. Golden Soul was like the water breath bead. It could be taken into the 10-finger prison. This was what Zhuo Emo prioritized. However, there were no problems on his side, but he was not sure that Song Zhe would accept his conditions. The other would not easily give something like Golden Soul away. So he spoke of his problem. As expected, when he heard that Zhuo Emo could not move to the Grey Clan, Song Zhe's expression was not good. Truthfully, the price that Song Zhe gave was already the highest price. Zhuo Emo might have reconstructed the Wasteland Beast chessboard, but this was only the first prison. In other words, what Zhuo Emo displayed now was astonishing potential and not great strength. Before it became strength, potential was just potential no matter how amazing it was. It was filled with uncertainty and risk. Song Zhe was silent for a long time. Zhuo Emo instantly thought it was bad. Damn it, if something this good flew away, he would cry. Just as Zhuo Emo had a headache, Pu Yao finally couldn't resist speaking. Chapter 356. New changes. Ask him what level of gray scar art he has cultivated to. Zhuo Emo immediately detected Pu Yao's urgent tone when he suddenly spoke. After being in contact with Pu Yao for a long time, Zhuo Emo gradually learned some of Pu Yao's habits. Usually, Pu Yao looked down his nose at the great majority of matters, but when it was something that was of great help to him, he would not disguise his urgent desire. Speaking from this perspective, Pu Yao was very straightforward. However, the great majority of the time his straightforwardness was not very easy for a person to accept. For example, he did not disguise his desire for the Golden Souls. Also, for example, if Zhuo Emo did not get the Golden Souls for him, then what was waiting for him were countless pitfalls. Pu Yao's threats were bare naked. Zhuo Emo knew this very well. He coughed lightly and said, "What step have you reached with your gray scar art?" Song Zhe was very shocked. Gray scar art? The other new gray scar art? Nan Yu detected Song Zhe's shock from the side. She thought inside, was this another Yao art like the South Sky Arrow art? Darren was really mysterious. Song Zhe tightly stared at Zhuo Emo as he wanted to see hints from Zhuo Emo's face. But Zhuo Emo was a very experienced person. He stiffened his face, and copied Pu Yao's expressionless face very well. Inside he muttered, "I was such a pure and generous person before. After staying so long with Pu Yao, I'm now skilled in conning and lying." Of course, he would not feel any guilt. He was trying to act out his role properly. Song Zhe could not find any clues. Since the other could say the name of the gray scar art, he should not be speaking nonsense. Of the many Yao arts that existed now in the Grey Clan, gray scar art was very unnoticeable. Those youths of the clan who had the slightest talent would not choose this Yao art as their primary cultivation. They would like Yao art such as gray sea art, or gray cloud art, that were more powerful. But as the grandson of the clan leader, he knew more than normal Grey Clan members. For example, The Council of Elders had never stopped their secret studies of the Grey Scar art. The Grey clan had so many Yao arts, but why did the other just mention the Grey Scar art? Countless thoughts flashed through Songzai's mind. He lowered his head and said respectfully, "This one has not cultivated Grey Scar art." Not cultivated? Pu Yao stilled. Zuo reacted rapidly and stilled as well. You have not cultivated Grey Scar art? Has the Grey clan created some other powerful Yao art? Pu Yao murmured to himself. His brows furrowed, and he was slightly surprised. Has your Grey clan created some powerful Yao art? Zuo learned and sold it at the same time. Songzai gritted his teeth. Not created new Yao art, but this student is stupid and has not been allowed access to Grey Scar art. His heart beat wildly, his term for himself changing from this one to this student. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's brow smoothed as he released a breath. Tell him you will teach him Grey Scar art, and exchange for 5 golden souls each year. You know Grey Scar art? Zuo asked Pu Yao suspiciously. That thing is very simple, it just curves from normal. Having found his confidence, Pu Yao waved his hand with bravado. Zuo was both trusting and suspicious. Pu Yao really knew too many things. However, his thoughts did not affect his reaction. He lightly coughed. I happen to know a bit about cultivating Grey Scar art. Songzai felt a strong feeling of happiness burst over his mental defenses. He actually felt a thread of dizziness. His voice trembled slightly. Really? Yes. Zuo forced himself to say. At this time, Songzai showed his quality as the grandson of the clan leader. He did not lose control but suppressed his excitement. He asked respectfully, "What can my Grey clan do for teacher?" Zuo looked with praise at Songzai. He thought inside that this boy was very adept. However, he did not give the other a discount due to his praise. 10 golden souls each year. When he opened, Zuo doubled Pu Yao's price. It's not Ji is greedy, Ji has a home and people to support. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao gazed with bulging eyes. Hiss, Songzai sucked in a breath. Even though he had predicted that the price the Grey clan would pay would not be low, but 10 golden souls annually, this price still far surpassed his estimate. This matter is grave. This student needs to ask the elders of the sect. Songzai carefully answered. All right. Zuo did not waste words. He pointed at Nan Yu and said, "She is my follower, just find her in the future." Hearing this, Songzai hurriedly exchanged spirit imprints with Nan Yu. A simple gray character flew in front of Songzai. At the sides were 2 gray-green sparse shrubs. Nan Yu also took out her own spirit imprint. Her spirit imprint was the 2 characters South Sky, formed by a curved purple vine. Noticing Nan Yu's spirit imprint, Songzai's heart moved. In his investigation, Nan Yu did not have much of a background. She was born from a very small clan, their living conditions were difficult, and they were very normal. Seeing her spirit imprint, he couldn't help but be shocked. Being from an influential family, he naturally would not lack knowledge about spirit imprints. The way that the South Sky was written was completely different than what it was written like now. This kind of spirit imprint would mostly appear on those clans with long histories. He noted it down, and planned on making an investigation when he returned. He reached out with a finger and gently poked the South Sky. A purple light flew into his spirit imprint. Nan Yu did the same. After exchanging spirit imprints, the 2 sides would easily get in contact. Songzai hurriedly bid farewell. He was in a hurry to go back and report. He had a feeling that this chance was very likely to be a chance in the Grey clan's fortunes. After Songzai left, Zuo taught Nan Yu for a while before he left. So he went the way of deconstruction. Qianlu was slightly puzzled. A pretty unique style. The fire-faced person seemed to be uninterested in the Wasteland Beast chessboard. Looking around, he suddenly snickered and said, "Those little brats probably can't stop themselves now." Qianlu knew the people the fire-faced person was referring to. He smiled but did not speak. He continued to observe the Wasteland Beast chessboard. He had left vast water clear skies 300 years ago when he had broken the prison. He had not paid much attention to this incident in the past. But his curiosity did not decrease today. He could not remember how long it had been since he came to vast water-clear skies. As an expert that stayed in the 7th prison, the first prison was really a distant memory. Today he had come especially to take a lot what the newly constructed prison by the guy who had broken his vast water-clear skies looked like. I heard he is also very young? Qianlu asked interestedly. Very young. The fire-faced person's eyes raised his eyebrows. The face inside the ball of fire raised his brows with schadenfreude. He's probably on the list of the little brats as a target to challenge. That's not bad. Qianlu said neutrally, competition is good. He took back his consciousness and said with regret, pity I cannot activate the prison-breaking battle. The powerful stuff is all in there. The conditions to activate the prison-breaking battle were mysterious. For example, no one had activated the first prison, vast water-clear skies, in the 300 years. However, in the last 300 years, the 2nd, 4th, and 5th prisons had all been activated. The pattern involved was hard to predict. Qianlu had activated a prison-breaking battle, and knew much more than normal people. The conditions to activate the prison-breaking battle did not have a direction connection with power, but the level of the person. It was also a very subtle connection. It would not work if the person's level was too high, like he was currently. He could activate the first prison's prison-breaking battle 300 years ago, but the present him could not do so. It would also not work if their level was too low. Also, the 10-finger prison seemed to favor young Yao. More accurately, young Yao with high levels. It really was a pity. Qianlu shook his head regretfully. The other's most powerful Yao art imprint was inside the prison-breaking battle. The Wasteland Beast chessboard was filled with profound and exquisite deconstructing Yao arts. It was like a rich sea of problems. Qianlu had fought against many experts before, but it was the first time he had seen such an unique style. His heart itched and was hard to resist. The fire-faced person saw the regret on Qianlu's face and suddenly crowded over. I have a solution. What solution? Get the group of brats to come. The fire-faced person seemed to want the world in chaos. That group of brats definitely is full of motivation right now. Let them come break the Wasteland Beast chessboard. Qianlu's thoughts shifted, but he shook his head and said, the prison-breaking battle is not so easy to activate. Hee, that isn't our business. I speculate that the group of old farts is also interested. The fire-face said and snickered. He then said with righteous magnanimity, don't worry about this matter, I'll get them to come. Qianlu was truly curious about Zuomo's Yao arts. He smiled and did not stop the other, only saying, don't make it too big. Don't worry, don't worry. The fire-faced person's expression was excited. Zuomo came out of the Wasteland Beast chessboard, and felt a warm gust of air on his face. He shook, and hurriedly opened his eyes. A familiar face was almost pressed to his. Ague. He released a breath. Holding up Ague's face, he asked curiously, what were you doing? Ague stared dazedly at him, and did not reply. When Zuomo finished speaking, he stilled. Wait. Joy suddenly came into his eyes. Ague. Ague stilled looked dumbly at Zuomo without any response. The joy on Zuomo's face gradually retreated. He examined Ague closely. Her eyes were still empty and wooden. He couldn't help but have a disappointed expression. Ague had not recovered. He shook his head, and mocked himself. He was really too greedy. He quickly recovered from his disappointment. Even though Ague had not recovered, but she was much more lively now compared to before. At the very least, this was a sign of a good turn of fortunes. Thinking it through, the depression over Zuomo's heart instantly swept away, and he roused himself. Jumping up, he picked Ague up and put her on his back as he charged outside. Ague, let's go. We'll go to Shulong's place to play. Chapter 357. Shadow Mo Guard. Whenever since the guard camp was established, it seemed fated to have a hidden competitive relationship with Vermilion Bird Camp. Even though the majority of the camp guards were once Vermilion Bird Camp's captives. At the start, Vermilion Bird Camp had been unparalleled in its strength, and dominated all of Little Mountain Jia. In reality, For a very long time after the camp was formed, guard camp had been in a very awkward state. They were weak offensively, could not fight for Darren, and in many occasions, they were a burden. Even many people from Vermilion Bird Camp could not understand why Darren would set up guard camp who was so weak in battle. Everyone in guard camp had a grudge. They furiously cultivated without holding back any energy back. They never asked why they were cultivating. Why were they cultivating like this? They only buried their heads and cultivated. Hardship? They were Xiao slaves. They were not afraid of hardship. Finally, the situation changed when Xu Long formed his armor. After forming his armor, Xu Long did not just recover his youth, but his combat abilities had become comparable to the top tier under Darren's command. The Crow Fiend Mo kill formation was finally effective in battle, but the main force in battles was still Vermilion Bird Camp. Their heavy and clumsy armor caused their movements to be slow. This made them take up a more defensive position in battles. The situation had finally changed now. Xu Long tightly grasped the long halberd in his hand. A cold feeling passed back as though a burst of strength burrowed into his body. His chest was filled with motivation. It wasn't as simple as just getting a weapon. Xu Long suddenly saw Zuo and a Gui in the doorway, and hurriedly bowed. Zuo looked around. Seeing everyone working hard, a smile came onto his face. Not bad. Zuo had been worried about morale previously. Seeing the business of the campsite, his heart relaxed slightly. In reality, guard camp's morale had been good all along. This place was filled with black fiendish energy. It gave the guard camp the hope of surpassing Vermilion Bird Camp. They worked even harder on their cultivation. Vermilion Bird Camp's morale was more severely affected, but after Zuo threw them, Fiendling, they had settled down. The path to leave this land could be slowly searched for, but if they did not even have the Ling energy to cultivate, that was a blade that hung above the necks of Xiuzha. Owen saw Zuo and ran over. Darren. When Zuo saw Owen, he asked with a smile, Owen, how's your cultivation going? Owen was much healthier than when he had been rescued. His exquisite armor did not feel clumsy at all, but nimble and light. Haha, Darren, look. Owen held up his black spear as though he was presenting a treasure. My weapon formed too, and I also comprehended some fun things. The completely black long spear had no adornment, but it gave the feeling of being finely crafted. The lines were smooth and flowing, 2 grooves on either side of the spear point. The fiery red charm hung at the head of spear, and caused the black spear, which originally seemed murderous and cold, to have a hint of fire. Can the spear leave your body? Zuo asked. No. Owen scratched his head and said, the black speak is condensed from killing energy. If it leaves my hand, it will dissipate. Zuo's interest was stirred. Come show me. Owen obeyed. With a somersault, he flew out 20 zhang. Seeing this, the other people in the campsite stopped what they were doing and cheered Owen on. Little monkey, one more. Little monkey, don't embarrass yourself in front of Darren. Haha, little monkey, if you can't do it, switch for someone else. When Owen had been rescued, his figure had been very small. Even though he was much healthier now, but among this camp of burly men, his figure really was on the small side. Adding on that Owen's personality was lively and active, he was also clever. Everyone called him Little Monkey. Ha, just be jealous. Owen shot back. His smiling face suddenly turned serious as he stood holding his spear. The noisy camp instantly quieted. Everyone's mirth retreated, their expressions becoming serious. Owen might be young, but he was exceptionally talented, and was firmly held his spot as the second strongest member of the guard camp, his strength just a bit less than Xu Long's. They were also very curious about what Owen had comprehended from staying in meditation for so long in the fiendish mist. Xu Long had a gratified expression. He was the oldest, his personality was steady and well established. His competitive desire was weak. He had basically taught everything to Owen. Seeing Owen improve rapidly, he was very happy. Owen's expression was serious. The air flowed in streams around him and gradually sped up. In an instant, the air started to hiss like an arrow traveling at a high speed. Clang. With the sound of metallic impact, many black and gold plumes popped out of the black armor. Zuo was very shocked. Owen's figure was thin and slender to begin with. With the addition of these long feather-like black gold plumes, he looked even more nimble. Owen bent his legs slightly, and then his figure disappeared from his spot. So fast. Zhuomo's pupils slightly shrunk. His eyes were not ordinary, but he could only see a streak of black. He was shocked. Unless Zhuomo used the light void wings, he would be left eating dust behind a one with that speed. This boy's talent isn't bad. Pu Yao couldn't resist popping in. Look, this is the difference. He can cultivate to this step using a trashy hardship guard. Don't you feel ashamed? Ashamed? Why should I be ashamed? Zhuomo did not turn his eyes and responded, "It's better the stronger he is." Pu Yao finally recalled the person in front of him had such a thick face that he was immune to mockery of this degree. Zhuomo rubbed his chin and said directly, "Not bad, not bad. This fast, we don't have to use turtle tactics in the future. Can he fly? It will be great if there is flight." Don't think so optimistically. Pu Yao could not bear to see Zhuomo's content state, and smirked. This boy is very talented. The other people lack greatly compared to him. They can only be heavy armor hardship guards. His tone then turned. So many cultivation sects, they are all blind to dismiss such a good seed. Pu Yao started his usual habit of mocking everyone. Zhuomo ignored him and looked seriously at Owen. Owen's speed was extremely fast and rivaled the sword Xiao when they flew on their swords. His nimbleness was actually better than sword Xiao. Zhuomo, who could be considered to be an old-timer, was very clear how much of an advantage such speed would be in combat. Midair, Owen flipped again, and the black spear in his hand suddenly thrust. Hiss! A section of the spear point suddenly appeared out of the air in a place 30 zhang from his body. What is that? Zhuomo's expression changed. Airbreaker, a little technique. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Even though he said this, Pu Yao could not disguise the pride on his face. So young and he comprehended Airbreaker. It can be considered rare for MO guards. Pu Yao's tone turned to be slightly regretful. Actually, Shulong's talent is also not bad, but it is a pity that his age when he started cultivation is slightly old. All of the others sighed in shock. They widened their eyes in fear of missing any detail. Many of the techniques that Owen was showing now was great inspiration to him, especially the camp guards that had broken through and formed their weapon. In the air, Owen seemed unconstrained by space. The tip of his spear thrust would appear in any place within 100 zhang of him according to his will. In a good mood, Pu Yao started to urge. Actually, hardship guards like this boy's kind is rare. The greatest duty of MO guards are to protect their master, not to kill enemies. That is why MO guards are frequently large blockheads. These people from guard camp are too weak. The best MO guards are mountain range bull MO, and stone rhinoceros MO. If they cultivate hardship guard, TSK, they are just moving mountains. If it is the mantis MO that cultivate hardship guard, it is more common for shadow MO guards specialized in speed to appear. But mantis MO are guys who will die if they are touched. Who would use them as guards? Maybe if they do not want to live a long time. Hearing this, Zhuomo noticed the other people in guard camp. As expected, they were all big blockheads. Each person's body was full of exaggerated muscles. Their figures were half again as large as normal people on average. Adding on the thick armor, they were like mobile steel forts. At this time, the red charm on Owen's black spear suddenly turned to a thread of fire, and wrapped around the tip of the spear. Kill! Owen shouted. A light that intermingled red and black tore apart the air. Boom! Everyone felt their vision light up. A burning and fiendish wave of air blew through the entire guard camp. When the air gusts subsided, a deep pit about 5 zhang wide appeared on the corner of the campsite. It was an easy matter to make a pit 5 zhang wide. However, this pit seemed slightly deep. Zhuomo flew to beside the pit, and looked inside. His heart was instantly shocked. This pit most likely was not less than 20 zhang deep. Making a pit with a width of 5 zhang was not hard, but a pit that was deeper than 20 zhang was very difficult to accomplish. This pit was formed like a knife cutting tofu. The bottom and top part of the hole were the same width. This showed one thing. Wen's attacking force was concentrated and evenly distributed. Zhuemo judged that if he was hit, he would probably lose half of his life. Wen's figure flashed and he appeared next to Zhuemo. Not bad, little monkey, Zhuemo praised. You have really broadened my vision. Wen's face suddenly became flushed and slightly embarrassed. Darren, do not ridicule this humble performance. Ho, little monkey, you're embarrassed now? Haha, little monkey's face is very thin. The people in the surroundings instantly started. Wen was even more embarrassed. He scratched his head and stood at the side. Seeing this, the other people laughed even more happily. Zhuemo also couldn't resist roaring in laughter. Is what you say true? The elders in the room exploded. Many of the elders unconsciously stood up. These elders' emotions were turbulent, and they forgot to keep their strength back. All the furniture in the room creaked and exploded in pieces. Songzae's scalp turned numb. He did not dare to breathe. He said so. How can he know how to cultivate gray scar art? He definitely is a liar. Who cares if he is a liar? Catch him and then we will know. Catch? What if he really knows? If we offend him, we will really lose greatly. The Gray Clan elders talked over each other, their faces red and their necks thick as though they were going to kill someone. Songzae buried his head lower and grimaced inside. All right, all of you shut up. A deep voice sounded. All of the voices disappeared. The chief elder finally spoke. Songzae wiped away the cold sweat and celebrated inside. What conditions does he have? The chief elder opened his eyes in his wrinkle-filled face. 10 golden souls. Each year. The enormous elder room was deathly silent. Chapter 358. Public Challenge. Have you gone to see the Wasteland Beast chessboard? A student excitedly asked his classmate. Another student hurriedly took up the topic. Of course, how can I miss it? They are really strong. They say it is a very young Yao. I wonder which Yao art house this monster came from. There are Yao beyond Yao, bro. Student A said emotionally. Right? I had assumed before that all the geniuses were part of the Genius Alliance. Didn't think there would be people outside. Student B felt it was slightly impossible to believe. I've long found that group of lily-white faces an eyesore. They take away all the girls based on their strength, and leave us with nothing. A hero finally comes down from the heavens. Hero. He definitely has to strike a blow against their arrogant aura, and save all of us. Student A spread out his arms and shouted. At the side, a snort suddenly came. Delusional. Student A was enraged and suddenly turned around his face. However, he instantly faltered when he saw who had come. He dejectedly pulled Student B and fled. Mu Wuxiang disdainfully stared at the two fleeing figures, but a shadow came over his mood. His steps grew slightly faster. He quickly reached the lecture room. When he stepped into the room, a wave of noise blew into his face. He unconsciously frowned. The terms of prison-breaking battle and Wasteland Beast chessboard continuously appeared. His mood became even more terrible. He noticed that when some students saw him, they purposefully increased their volume and made expressions in secret. Mu Wuxiang unconsciously clenched his fists. He snorted coldly, turned and walked out of the lecture room. Che, what genius alliance, that is a true genius. Yes, yes. The sounds of discussion behind him burrowed into his ears. His face was blackened. In a depressed mood, Mu Wuxiang flew to Daytime Peak. Right now, it was class time and there were not many people on Daytime Peak. Standing on the 6,000 chi Daytime Peak, he looked into the distance. Mu Wuxiang's depressed mood instantly eased greatly. Haha, I guess you were here. A familiar voice came from behind him. Without needing to turn his head, Wu Wuxiang knew who had come. Jinling, his best friend from childhood. The two were from large clans and had close relations. The two of them had played together from very young and could be considered childhood sweethearts. However, the two of them had developed a platonic friendship and were like siblings rather than the more intimate relationship their parents wanted. Why concern yourself with these people? Jinling urged. It seems that we suppress them too much usually. Mu Wuxiang did not speak, but his heart eased. There were 2 members of Genius Alliance in Bright Might Yao Art House. One was Mu Wuxiang, the other was Jinling. Genius Alliance was a loose organization among students. It was established 400 years ago, and was created by the 12 top genius students from the many Yao art houses of the Yao world. The Genius Alliance only recruited those with outstanding students. After developing for more than 4 centuries, the influence of Genius Alliance was much greater than it started with. In 4 centuries, each generation's alliance leader of the Genius Alliance was the undoubted leader of their generation of students. When these geniuses finished their schooling, if they would enter the important systems of the Yao world, or they were managing major areas. In its 4-century history, 9 Sky Yao had appeared among their numbers. This was almost 7/10 of the Sky Yao that had appeared over this 4-century period. Each student thought it an honor to enter the Genius Alliance, and the scheduled exchanges inside the alliance was fatally attractive to these people who were cultivating maniacs. If they could enter the Genius Alliance, they would definitely have a bright future. However, these great talents also garnered much ire. On one hand, due to thinking highly of themselves, they were very brazen in their actions, and naturally did not attract favor. On the other hand, the elders that had already left the Genius Alliance liked to take care of their younger juniors in the Genius Alliance. This meant that the Genius Alliance was given a great amount of resources, and caused many Yao to feel it was unfair. The reason that this prison-breaking battle was related to the Genius Alliance was that the Genius Alliance had been planning on a prison-breaking battle recently. They were used to being high-profile, and so this plan had been made public early on so everyone knew. But at this time, the sudden prison-breaking battle that appeared caused the Genius Alliance's position to be very awkward. Those students that disliked the Genius Alliance before were naturally happy. The Genius Alliance that had never been in a reactive position before finally tasted what it was like to be roasted on a fire. However, these young geniuses were all very proud. How could they swallow this? Mu Wuxiang was also the same. Jinling's tone was light, but she also had a fire suppressed inside. Suddenly, the spirit imprint on Mu Wuxiang's arm lit up. Mu Wuxiang noticed the ancient character inside the light, and a blush came onto his black face. His eyes became excited. A ball of light floated from the spirit imprint, and a face that they were very familiar with showed up. He said excitedly, "Great, both of you are here. Saves me from making another trip. Quick, come to the Wasteland Beast chessboard now." Mu Wuxiang and Jingling exchanged looks. They were excited. The alliance was going to act. The two did not waste words and instantly stood to fly with their greatest speed to the cultivation seclusion rooms. The two each rented a seclusion room and entered the Wasteland Beast chessboard. They quickly found the alliance. 46 Yao. Mu Wuxiang and Jinling were all greatly shocked, and then they immediately became excited. It was possible to see how much the alliance prioritized this matter, when so many alliance members were present. When they saw the youth that looked very honest at the front, they couldn't help but become excited again. He had a very interesting name, Why Boy. He was one of the supervisors of the Genius Alliance. Those that had roles inside the Genius Alliance were those that were very powerful, more powerful than normal members. Why Boy's appearance was very normal. He always had a smile on his face, appeared to be harmless and honest. But today the smile on Why Boy's smile disappeared. The narrowed eyes were lit up. Just received news that the master of the Wasteland Beast chessboard has challenged us directly. Mu Wuxiang's excited expression froze on his face. He looked dazedly at Why Boy, his mouth gaping. The other student members all had shocked and disbelieving faces. Challenging the Genius Alliance. Was this guy crazy? This has already been broadcasted by all the major Yao channels. We do not know if someone is scheming and pushing their agenda from the shadows, or if it is the person's challenge. But this is not important. Because we will use reality to tell everyone that doubts us. Who is truly the geniuses? Like usual, Nanyu entered the Wasteland Beast chessboard. However, today seemed. She looked strangely at the surrounding Yao. She noticed that they all seemed to be very excited. Has something major happened? Did someone activate the prison-breaking battle again? She shook her head and smiled, and felt amused that she would have such an absurd thought. I heard that the Genius Alliance are coming to break the Wasteland Beast chessboard. This sentence burrowed into Nanyu's ears. Nanyu shook and felt a basin of cold water had been poured over her head. What? Genius Alliance wanted to break Darren's Wasteland Beast chessboard? She focused and listened closely. Ah. Why is Genius Alliance at odds with the Wasteland Beast chessboard? I remember now. They seem to have said they were going to break a prison before. Had their goal also been vast water clear skies? You definitely do not know. The one making the challenge is the mystery person. Mystery person? The owner of the Wasteland Beast chessboard? Just that one. Go watch the news, they're broadcasting it everywhere. Nanyu wasn't in the mood to cultivate, and immediately left the Wasteland Beast chessboard. Her room was just 4 walls. Where would she have the Yao news tree? She hurriedly put on an outer garment, pushed open the door and flew up. She recalled that the center of the city had an enormous Yao news tree. She saw the Yao news tree that reached up to the clouds from a long way off, and adjusted her direction to fly towards it. This Yao news tree was the largest of the 3 closest cities. The enormous crown of the tree was like a small mountain with innumerable forts. Countless vines drooped down from the tree branches and were heavy with pod-like fruits. Yao filled all of the Yao news tree. Nanyu picked a place with few people and landed. When she just steadied her body, her consciousness wrapped on a thin vine in front of her. With a pop, the fruit of the Yao news tree exploded and turned to a multicolored mist. The rainbow mist quickly changed and became a beautiful female Yao. The female Yao's expression was very excited, and spoke very quickly. The mystery young expert that just finished the prison-breaking battle, and reconstructed the Wasteland Beast chessboard, has publicly challenged the Genius Alliance. We are now doing a special report about this matter. Up until now, the Genius Alliance has not made any formal statements about this matter, and the new master of the Wasteland Beast chessboard has not been seen. However, this matter is definitely not unsubstantiated. Maybe we will soon see a spectacular struggle. Nanyu's head rang. Impossible. This was impossible. Darren definitely would not challenge the Genius Alliance. This thought was so strong that Nanyu did not doubt it. She had not spent much time with Darren, but she did not feel that Darren, from any perspective, would be such an arrogant and impulsive Yao. There definitely was someone spreading fake information. Nanyu was not dumb and instantly understood. However, her expression did not turn for the better, but became even worse. No one was ignorant of the power of the Genius Alliance. Almost all Yao knew what those geniuses were like. Regardless of whether this information was real, with the conduct of the Genius Alliance, they definitely would not rest. Why was it like this? Xixiang moved faster. Gong Suncha said, unsatisfied. In the fiendish mist, Zuomo's face instantly fell. After absorbing the soul-based source of the fiend souls, Gong Suncha's speed had increased, which caused Zuomo's fishing to be unable to keep up. Zuomo was discontent. So noisy. It's good that you even have something to eat. 10th grade flew up and down at the side, his little face slightly distressed. No, Xixiang, you have to be responsible for satiation since you are responsible for the food. Gong Suncha's face was rascally. The corner of Zuomo's eyes twitched. He forcibly suppressed the impulse to kick Gong Suncha away. Suddenly his gaze focused and he stopped all movement. Raising his face, he looked towards the deeper parts of the fiendish mist. Sword Essence. Chapter 359. Activation Sword Essence. There was sword essence within the fiendish mist. Zuomo's eyes flashed. The sword essence coming from the fiendish mist was faint, but he was sure it wasn't an illusion. Out of caution, he closed his eyes and spread out his consciousness. A moment later he opened his eyes. They were ecstatic. There were people. There were people inside the fiendish mist. Nothing could excite him more. He hadn't been this excited even after he completed the prison break battle. Ever since they stepped into this vast, desolate, and mysterious ancient battlefield, uncertainty and worry had always been clouds over his heart regardless of how calm and composed he appeared. There was no sign of life to be seen on this unknown ancient battlefield. This place was silent and barren, filled with danger. All the signs supported that this was a land of death. The scariest part of a dead land was the dangers all around it. The impoverished and dangerous environment meant that Zuemo and the others did not even have a chance to breathe. But now Zuemo suddenly found that there were people existing in a place he assumed was dead. How could he not be ecstatic? It was like searching endlessly in the darkness, and suddenly seeing a glimmer of light. At least, they had a chance to rest. Zuemo believed that if they had enough time, they could definitely walk out of the ancient battlefield. There are people ahead. Zuemo pointed excitedly at the depth of the fiendish mist as he said to Gongsun Cha. People. Gongsun Cha was stunned. After a moment he suddenly reacted. There are people inside? In. Zuemo nodded heavily. Someone is using sword essence in there. In that direction. It's a bit far from us but not impossibly so. I can feel it, but it is not very strong. What should we do? Gongsun Cha hurriedly asked. Gather everyone, and we will advance in that direction. We need to be fast, or we will miss them. At this time, Zuemo showed the decisiveness of a leader, and did not hesitate in issuing instructions. Wei Sheng stared at the fiend soul beast in front of him. The black sword in his hand slightly raised. However, his heart sank slightly. The body of this fiend soul beast was longer than 3 zhang. It was shaped like a scorpion. Between the two pincers, he was able to see the crisscrossing teeth that sent chills through his heart. Its body was completely covered in shiny, black armor covered with red seal scripts that curved like earthworms. There were 2 dark red dots for eyes that lit up in the fiendish mist, and shocked one's soul. Its body was close to the ground. The 2 pincers slightly raised as a dark and vicious presence tightly locked onto Wei Sheng. This fiend soul beast had silently closed in with intentions of ambushing him. If it wasn't for the fact that Wei Sheng's cultivation level had progressed greatly, his sword essence spiritually clear and taken to heart, Wei Sheng himself was not sure he could survive after an ambush by such a vicious beast. However, Wei Sheng did not panic due to his shock. He was not willing to show weakness, and his sword essence locked onto the other. This fiend soul scorpion seemed to know the prey in front of it should not be underestimated. It did not dare to move rashly, and it seemed very wary of the great black sword in Wei Sheng's hands. The two descended into a standoff. Wei Sheng closely watched the fiend soul scorpion. The black sword in his hand did not tremble at all. He had killed his every step the entire way on his trip through the fiendish mist. After continuous, hard battles, his body was very tired, and at the end of its strength, the black sword seemed to lose its spirit. The aura had gradually faded. This caused Wei Sheng to feel it progressing was even harder, and basically had left him no opportunity to rest. The exhaustion of his body was like a tide, wave after wave crashing against Wei Sheng's mental defenses. Suddenly, Wei Sheng recalled the time when he had been a sword servant. Just with his simple and crude sword art, he had been searching for his sword path in the wilderness. At that time he had been so innocent and so satisfied. There were no conflicts inside the sect, no unspoken criticism about the sect, no other thoughts. He was like the sword in his hand, simple to the utmost. He lightly sighed. There were many matters in the world that people were helpless against, could not brush off or dodge. Like this patch of fiendish mist. It continuously corroded his Ling power. Now he understood why so many Xiuzhou would stay in a distance place away from the troubles of the world. As Wei Sheng's mind was distracted, the cunning and vicious fiend soul scorpion instantly seized at a chance. The glowing red eyes drew out 2 soul-shaking streaks in the fiendish mist. The speed of the fiend soul scorpion was like lightning. It was so fast, and the sound was so muffled that there wasn't even a vibration in the air. Wei Sheng's heart was shocked. He knew he was in an unprecedentedly dangerous situation. When he had sighed just now, he instantly knew that the wandering thought was a sign of extreme danger. It meant that his body was weak to the point of collapsing, which was why his mental defenses had been so lax. But he had not expected this vicious beast to be so sensitive and cunning to accurately seize this chance. His wrist flipped, and the horse-chopping saber that was up to Wei Sheng's chest seemed to be as light as air as it blocked in front of his chest. Dong. Among the sound of steel striking, Wei Sheng's body shook and he retreated 7 steps. Wei Sheng grimaced inside. If his condition wasn't so poor, then he wouldn't have retreated even one step under such a force. But his endurance and Ling power had reached their tail ends. His battle experience was rich, and he knew that the vicious beast in front of him was cunning and deceitful. It definitely had detected that he was weak inside. As expected, the red light of the fiend soul scorpion exploded. It did not attack, but like before, it dashed forward. Such a cautious beast. Wei Xing did not have the time to finish praising it when a great force passed over. He made a muffled grunt and took 10 steps back before he steadied his figure. Was he going to be buried here today? Wei Xing sighed inside. Only now did the fiend soul scorpion truly confirm that Wei Xing had reached his last legs. It attacked without hesitation. It was very cunning, and knew that Wei Xing had almost no strength left, so it tried to use brute force to destroy Wei Xing. Dong dong dong. The sound of impacts were endless like a tempest. Wei Xing struggled to endure like a little boat in a hurricane, suddenly moving up and down as though he could be swallowed by the waves at any moment. The attacks of the fiend soul scorpion were relentless, and as fast as lightning. Wei Xing was surrounded by danger. The already tattered clothing at this time was destroyed by the small yet sharp turbulence like butterflies in flight. A stream of blood came from the corner of Wei Xing's mouth. The Ling power in his body was drained. His channels started to crack. He would not be able to persist for much longer, as his channels would shatter into countless pieces, and his cultivation would instantly collapse. The black sword that had seemed vicious before was like a dull sword of ordinary metal without any sheen. Was he really going to lose his life here? Wei Xing was in a daze, his moves slow as though he could fall at any moment. Yet unexpectedly, after more than 10 continuous attacks, he was still standing, barely. If one looked closely, they would find that when the fiend soul scorpion's pair of pincers was going to strike him, the black sword in his hand would coincidentally appear in front of the giant pincers. The moment his body was in danger, Wei Xing would always make an instinctive response. Without conscious thought, without Ling power, his mind was completely blank. Dong dong dong. The hurricane was ongoing, so long it made one feel hopeless. Yet the scene was filled with weirdness. Wei Xing's eyes were wooden, empty and without thought. His movements were slow. Yet the instant the giant pincers were going to touch his body, his hesitation would disappear. His movements would be unspeakably simple and crisp, but when paired with his wooden expression, it was even stranger. It was as though if one more straw was added to his load, Wei Xing would fall. But no matter how the fiend soul scorpion tried, even when the giant pincers tore the air apart in their attacks, they were stopped by Wei Xing movements that were filled with strangeness. Nanyu stood on the borderless wasteland beast chessboard. She bit her lips tightly. Just on her way here, she had already seen 7 groups of people from the Genius Alliance. The Genius Alliance did not have any intentions of disguising its retaliation. Dozens of the Genius Alliance supervisors continued to announce that they would definitely break the Wasteland Beast chessboard. The Genius Alliance were usually high-profile, but declaring such a thing in public had never happened before. Anyone with eyes could see the master of the Wasteland Beast chessboard had infuriated the Genius Alliance. A guy that offended the Genius Alliance, what good outcome would he have? How could Nanyu, who had been hearing of the Genius Alliance since she was very young, not know this? Before, the Genius Alliance was a place that was high and out of reach. She did not dare to even think of having a connection with the Genius Alliance, much less entering it. But in a night, the Genius Alliance actually became her enemy. How could she not feel terror? She knew they were targeting Darren, but as Darren's follower, Darren's enemies were her enemies. She felt great pressure from the groups of Genius Alliance members that appeared on the Wasteland Beast chessboard. Nanyu did not know how many Yao were paying attention to the Wasteland Beast chessboard, but she could clearly feel that there were multiple times more Yao at the Wasteland Beast chessboard than there were normally. Hey, has there been a result? No. Supposedly, the Genius Alliance of Fixed Sky Jia have come. This is going to be something good to see. Fixed Sky Jia also came? Then isn't it already 6 Jia that have come? It's the 8th Jia. Central Pond Jia and Lilium Jia also came. Wow, this scary? Yes, none of the Genius Alliance is willing to be defeated. How can they rest? In my view, Even if this matter concluded here, this conflict won't end. In your view, who do you favor? It's hard to say. On the surface, the Genius Alliance of course has the advantage, but a person that set down the Wasteland Beast chessboard, can he be a nice guy? Only idiots would believe such a thing. Look at how many people came from the Genius Alliance, but no one has activated the prison-breaking battle. Hearing the discussion drifting into her ears, Nanyu felt unspeakably irritated and fretful. Which damned guys dared to slander Darren? They should be slowly sliced to death. At this time, a wave of sound suddenly came over. Prison-breaking battle. Someone activated the prison-breaking battle. The sound wave came from far and rolled over. Nanyu's head rang and blinked. Her face was pale as she was stunned where she stood. The Yao in the surroundings hated that they were born without 2 more legs as they furiously charged towards the prison battlefield. Countless Yao of different shapes formed a flood towards the prison battlefield. Nanyu was sandwiched in the middle, and uncontrollably followed the flood towards the prison battlefield. How was it possible? Was the Genius Alliance really this powerful? Her expression was filled with hopelessness. Chapter 360. Start. I didn't think that someone would activate the prison-breaking battle so quickly. It is slightly unexpected to me, Qianlu said with a smile. The fire-faced person twisted his mouth. You're the only one interested in this low-level stuff. However, he had a proud expression. My skill isn't bad. Utmost base. Qianlu did not hesitate in giving his opinion. But very effective. The pride on the fire-faced person did not decrease in the slightest. Qianlu was too lazy to speak and stared at the prison battlefield. Huaibo vigilantly paid attention to his surroundings. The supervisors of the Genius Alliance were set for each jie. Each jie had 1 supervisor. This year, Huaibo was 20, and his strength and talent was undisputed to be able to become a supervisor of the Genius Alliance. However, Huaibo had not thought that he would activate the prison-breaking battle. Of the 8 supervisors that had entered the Wasteland Beast chessboard, in terms of power, he was ranked in the middle. However, he quickly reacted, and was very excited. This was a chance from the heavens. There were not many rules in the Genius Alliance, but being rewarded for one's service was the one upheld the strictest. There had been 9 Sky Yao to come out of the Genius Alliance, and 5 of them had left Yao arts behind for the Genius Alliance. This was added onto the wondrous techniques and strange arts that the generations of Alliance leaders had collected, which were all stored in a Yao art tree in the center of the Yao realm. This tree surpassed any Yao art tree from any Yao art house. This was a place that all Yao dreamed of. Huaibo was not an exception. Huaibo came from Ingwen Scholar Clan. It was one of the major clans locally, but in all of the Yao realm, it could only be considered middling. The Blue Thorn Secret Art was a very good Yao art, but Huaibo did not feel satisfied. He had become a supervisor of the Genius Alliance at such a young age, and had great ambitions. No one in the Scholar Clan's history had become a Sky Yao by cultivating Blue Thorn Secret Art. How could he be satisfied? The clan did not withhold any resources when nurturing him, and used all kinds of methods to collect even more powerful Yao arts for him. However, each of the top Yao arts were peerless in value. After so many years, they still were unable to acquire a top Yao art. Prison-breaking battle, no matter what, he had to achieve victory. Huaibo made a resolution. This service would probably be able to be traded for a pretty good Yao art. Come. Huaibo's eyes lit up, and he was full of fighting spirit. The procession of boats silently and rapidly progressed in the fiendish mist. Of the 5 slave-transporting boats, the slave-transporting boat of Golden Crow Camp was at the very center. The formation scripts on the body of the boat released faint light. The Crimson Fiend Cauldron continuously transformed the fiendish mist into Ling power, and guided it into the formations carved on the boat. Compared to when it was made, the Crimson Fiend Cauldron was much smaller now. This was due to being used day and night without a moment of rest. The Ling power transformed by the Crimson Fiend Cauldron, a 5th-grade talisman, was not just vast and rich, It was of high quality. As it worked day and night, this rich and pure Ling power was a small fire that finally baked the cauldron and continuously processed it. The Crimson Fiend cauldron was created by everyone of Golden Crow Camp, and it was unprecedented in its invention. However, many parts of the Crimson Fiend cauldron could not help but be somewhat heterogeneous due to the differences in cultivation of Sun Bao, Ji Wei, and the others. After a long period of Ling power forging, the impurities of the Crimson Fiend cauldron were slowly processed, and its quality was higher than before, but its size shrunk greatly. Zuomo was standing at the bow of the slave transporting boat at the very front. His gaze was fixed into the mist. The formations of the boat reflected light on his tense face and flickered. Beside him, Ague propped up her chin and copied Zuomo to look into the distance. Ague's wounds were clearly recovering, and her face gradually had some expression, even though it was still very wooden. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. There were hardship guards in black armor that ran around constantly on their patrol. Their expressions were watchful, and they were all hardship guards that had created their weapons. Owen ran at the very front with the black spear in his hand. The bright red tassel was like a flame flickering in the wind. These guard camp elite that had finished forming their weapons were like fish in the water among the fiendish mist. They also became the primary combat force. Gong Sun Cha led the Vermilion Bird camp. Xu Long led the guard camp. Xieshan was on the last slave transporting boat as the rear guard. In the remaining slave transporting boat, Ma Fan sat on top of the boat. The other people of the Sky Peak platoon were scattered around the boat. After the epiphany last time, Ma Fan's sword essence had reached manifestation, and the suppression the fiendish mist had on him was minimized. Everyone seemed to be on their guard, their expressions heavy. A murderous presence was thick and roiling among the troop like an enormous beast slowly traveling close to the ground without hurry or slowness. Even though he was in a hurry to find the person inside the fiendish mist, but Zuomo knew very well how dangerous the depths of the fiendish mist were. He did not dare to move without forethought. In such a dangerous territory, the slightest bit of carelessness could cause all of them to die. Lil Pagoda and Lil Fire nervously burrowed into Ague's arms. But even from Ningmai to Jindan, the difficulty involved. Blast it! Lei Peng shot out an angry breath. While everyone felt somewhat suppressed at not being able to charge at the very front, but they also felt slight anticipation. If there really were Xiozha inside the fiendish mist, then that meant they also could use their full power within the fiendish mist. They had persisted in practicing Fiendling, but they needed to reach the 3rd level before they could directly transform the fiend mist into Ling power. Before that, while they still could absorb fiendish mist and transform it to Ling power, the rate was very slow. That was fine for cultivation, but during battle, that meant that their Ling power would basically be unreplenished. Many of them put their hopes on the Xiozha inside the fiendish mist. Ping! A crisp collision sound occurred on the outside. Everyone's expressions changed. Enemy attack. This was the first attack they had encountered up until now. No one had good expressions. They had just traveled 50 li into the fiendish mist, and started to encounter attacks from unknown and vicious beings. The dangers up ahead could be imagined. The one that encountered the enemy was a one. Owen's eyes tracked the unknown and vicious beast in front of him. This vicious being was shaped like a tiger or panther, the long and nimble figure filled with beauty. Its entire body was covered in thick metal hard scales in layers and gleamed with a cold light. The paws on the ground had hooked and sharp claws that effortlessly dug into the soil. The eyes were set deep, the cheekbones protruded, but there were no eyeballs in the sockets, only red light. When Owen's gaze came into contact with the red light inside the eyes of the vicious being, he felt his body tighten, and was shocked inside. Zuomo's gaze landed on the vicious beast. Thinking about what Pu Yao had said to him before, he asked, "This is a fiend soul beast?" Yes. Pu Yao's tone did not have the aloofness it usually did, and was filled with gravity. Such a powerful fiend soul beast. This fiendish mist has been through an unknown amount of time. I've never seen black fiendish mist of such intensity, and have never heard of it. This fiendish soul beast surpasses any fiend soul beast of my knowledge. You need to be careful. Zuomo was shocked. This grave tone could be said to be very rare for Pu Yao. A strong feeling of danger formed, but Zuo forcibly suppressed it. He decided to see just how powerful this fiendish soul beast really was. One was a lucky survivor of the dueling stadium, and had experienced many cruel battles. The fiend soul beast in front of him gave him enormous pressure, but did not cause him to lose his calm. A cold feeling came from the black spear. He suddenly had a burst of confidence. In the dueling stadium, he had defeated many opponents stronger than him, and now, he was stronger than before. The expression on the handsome face silently changed. Killing essence rose, his eyes vicious. A thick black mist came from the thenar space where he grasped his black spear. And like a black snake, it coiled around the black spear. His presence suddenly exploded, his vicious eyes glaring as he shouted lowly, "Kill!" The black spear in his hand was held flat and thrust forward without finesse. Chapter 361. The Childhood Wish. Yizheng cut a sorry figure. His blue monk robe was in tatters as he staggered forward, lacking any of the usual grace that the sect taught him. However, who would care about grace at this time? He had never ever thought that the most normal sect mission would take him to such a ghastly place. Many times he had thought that he had come to the Avicii hell that only appeared on the records. Fortunately, he had worked hard on his cultivation these years, and with eldest Shixiang's focused teaching, while his combat abilities were not strong, his body of steel tendons and metal bones was unrivaled. By relying on his great defensive abilities, he had managed to survive in this endless mist until now. Before, he had not understood why eldest Shixiang made him cultivate wisdom dhyana body, but now he felt the wonders of this dhyana technique. A circle of Buddhist script whirled around his body without rest. This was why the corrosive fiendish mist did not infect his body. Impervious to all evils. Impervious to all evils. Yizheng continuously chanted. Beads of sweat could be clearly seen on his shiny and clean head. He had entered this mist for just 3 days, but in these 3 days his heart jumped around, and he was very afraid. He was a dhyana shio, and most sensitive to corrupt, and fiendish beings. But this fiendish mist in front of him was endless. And it was so dense it was almost unimaginable. Other than hell, Yizheng really could not think of a place that would have such vicious fiends. Fortunately, his wisdom dhyana body could naturally subdue these corrupt beings. Even though he had struggled on his way, but he was not wounded. However, his heart did not dare relax. Even the records of the sect had never mentioned such a vicious place. The vicious beings it formed would definitely be terrifying. Exterminate evil? Don't joke. Yizheng was very clearly how much he was worth. He believed it was a miracle that he had not been wounded up until now. Right now, he could only hope that the news of his disappearance would quickly arrive to the sect, and the sect would send people to rescue him. Actually, at the bottom of his heart, he also knew that chances were very small. He was only a person at the borders of the sect. He did know how long it would take for the sect to respond after his disappearance. He thought about eldest Shixiang, thought about how eldest Shixiang would be further neglected now that he was not in the sect. His mood instantly became slightly low. He aimlessly traveled through the fiendish mist. After walking for a short while, sounds of fierce combat could be heard from up ahead. Yizheng was startled awake. After pausing, he was overjoyed and ran with bare feet towards the sound. The sound of battle became clearer. He quickly saw a man fighting fiercely with a fiend soul scorpion. He carefully walked closer. When he saw the scorpion closely, he couldn't help but inhale sharply. More than 3 zhang tall and 2 pincers, each the size of a door. Yizheng felt his scalp become numb. If he was grazed by those enormous pincers, even his wisdom dhyana body definitely would be unable to tolerate it. My dear Buddha. Yizheng swallowed with difficulty. His gaze seemed to be glued and unable to be moved away. It was not due to the great strength of the scorpion, but how strange the scene was. The scorpion's opponent was a sword shio. Even though the black sword looked more like a horse-chopping saber, but Yizheng recognized that the other was a sword shio at first glance, and a very traditional sword shio. Such a strong sword shio. Yizheng was greatly alarmed. He recognized the origins of this scorpion. Fiend soul beast. This was a fiend soul beast, a vicious being born from the fiendish mist. He had previously been worried that the corrupt grounds would produce something extraordinary, but upon seeing this fiend soul scorpion, he finally realized just how powerful these vicious beings created were. If Yi Zheng's mind was clear now, his face would be pale and alarmed, but at this moment, his gaze was completely attracted by this odd-looking battle. The expression of the sword Xiu was dull. As though he was ill, his movements were slow and his gaze wooden. Every time the enormous pincers of the fiend soul scorpion were about to tear the sword Xiu in half, his slow movements would suddenly become nimble and stop the giant pincer by a hair. The confused expression on the sword Xiu's face, the dull and slow responses, and the sudden nimbleness formed a strong contrast and was very weird. After watching for a few moments, Yi Zheng felt his Ling power roil and showed signs of losing control. He paled greatly. In terms of the peacefulness of Ling power, Diana Xiu were blessed by the heavens. His Ling power was going wild just because he was watching someone else fight? Yi Zheng started his core scripture before he dared to look back at the battle. The signs of his Ling power escaping his control instantly disappeared. Yi Zheng exhaled. His eyes returned to the person and scorpion that were fighting. The amazement on his face increased. He looked at the sword Xiu as though he was looking at a ghost. Before, he had thought that the sword Xiu was in danger and would be killed at any time. Now that he saw it clearly, he found to his shock that there seemed to be an invisible stickiness to the sword Xiu's black sword. The vicious fiend soul scorpion was like a puppet manipulated by many strings and was struggling in this invisible force. A terrifying sword essence. Yi Zheng could not detect the sword Xiu's sword essence at all. At this moment he admired this sword Xiu's strength greatly. It wasn't that he had not encountered sword Xiu before, but it was the first time he had seen one so powerful. Also, the other seemed close in age to him. So young and possessing such power. It definitely was an accomplished disciple of a large sword cultivating sect. Was he a disciple of Kunlun? Once he saw the state of the situation clearly, Yi Zheng was not in a hurry anymore, and thought about how he would exchange greetings with the person later. He was slightly stuck. This was his first time off the mountain, and he had no experience to speak of. However, being able to encounter a Xiuzha in such a dangerous place, Yi Zheng felt his luck was already pretty good. After a while, the battle still had not finished. Now Yi Zheng saw that something was wrong. The sword Xiu's expression was confused and showed no signs of waking up. Was he? Yi Zheng was daring but paid attention to details. His mind moved. After waiting another moment, and seeing the situation did not turn for the better, he thought for an instant, and then started to chant in a low voice. Countless scenes flashed across Wei Sheng's eyes. They were mirages and shadows, but they were also so clear. The resolution he made as a child, the pursuit of it without fear through dangers, through hardships, sustaining wounds, comprehending the sword at the waterfall, becoming the eldest disciple, drinking alcohol with Swashiti under the stars, the order from the sect. Countless scenes merged together, and suddenly formed an enormous net that swept over him. There was no place to escape or dodge. The net grew tighter and restrained him. He felt he could not breathe. The feeling of suffocation filled his entire body. He was like a fish in the net. The more he struggled, the tighter the net was. Why? Why was it like this? I only wanted to cultivate the sword. A burst of anger suddenly came from deep in his heart. He was like a beast trapped in a net that struggled fruitlessly. Why? It was like a silent shout, a furious bellow. Why? He shouted at the top of his lungs, he wailed sorrowfully. In a daze, he dreamed of a patch of stars. In the dark night, the stars in the sky were numerous. A light wind brushed across an empty wilderness. The faint blue sparrow-tailed grasses swayed in the wind. A child about 7 or 8 years old was sleeping amongst the grass. Raising his head to look at the light streaking across the sky, the tender child voice carried deep amazement. So beautiful. The child jumped up from the grass. The wind brushed across his face and revealed his glittering eyes. A seed was silently planted in the heart of the child. The dream was so real, as though he could touch it, but distant like how the moon reflected in the water's surface. At this moment, Wei Sheng was like a statue. He looked dazedly at the child. Suddenly, something seemed to burst in his heart, and something came forth. The distance and unfamiliar childhood memory suddenly floated into his mind. Some reasons he had forgotten, those simple thoughts, they were like the blue sparrow-tailed grass seeds bursting from their shells, germination, and then growing. Yes, my dream is to cultivate the sword. A pure dream, a pure pursuit, a wish that a child made under the stars. A strange relaxation came into his mind. The feeling of suffocation disappeared without a trace. Wei Sheng looked entranced at the child underneath the stars. A slightly smile came onto his face, and warmth was shoved into his chest. Yes, it all came from this affection. The complex and common mortal matters that made him feel helpless seemed so small, so insignificant. He opened his eyes. His gaze was clear without any impurity. Ling power suddenly flooded from his dry channels like water sprouting from a spring. When this new Ling power passed, the parts of his channels that had been wounded instantly became filled with life like a tree welcoming spring. The Ling power that followed out was endless. In a short period of time, his Ling power had reached his best state. However, the Ling power showed no signs of stopping. They continued to rush into Wei Sheng's channels, and filled every bit of the channels. When all of Wei Sheng's channels were filled with Ling power, the new Ling power started to progress towards his dantian. Wei Sheng did not stop it. He did not do a thing. But that pair of eyes became even bright in the fiendish mist. It was filled with joy from the heart. A faint light covered the black sword in his hand. The fiendish mist around him seemed to suddenly be pushed by an enormous force, pushed far from Wei Sheng and vanished in the blink of an eye. Yi Zheng gaped as he looked at what was happening, and even forgot to continue chanting. Crack! The fiend soul beast shattered into dozens of pieces without warning and dropped to the ground. The cuts were peerlessly smooth. Even that pair of unbreakable pincers were dismembered into several sections. A sword shadow appeared behind Wei Sheng. The shadow of the sword went from blurry to clear, and continued to grow. In a few dozen breaths, the sword figure was dozens of zhang tall. The tip of the sword pointed at the sky. It showed no signs of stopping. It broke through the fiendish mist as though it was going to pierce the sky. Under the colossal sword shadow, Wei Sheng stood majestically. Thunder rolled through the fiendish mist. Tens of thousands of fiend soul beasts howled simultaneously. The blood-red sky seemed to boil. A worldly apparition. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.